I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for some.
Wow. How many people are here for item 3A, the closure of Bay City Flowers? Raise your hand, please. Okay. In order to accommodate you, we're going to change the order of the meeting so that after the consent calendar, we'll consider item 3A next. So that's important, I think, in order to deal with so many people who are interested on coming forward on that matter. I have two cards for public forum. This is for anybody who wants to speak, who is on an item that's not on the agenda. If anybody else wants to speak, please fill out a blue card. Clemencia, followed by Dr. Letitia. Is Clemencia Kennedy here?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Yep, go for it. Sure. Get close to the microphone.
And push the button.
Is there a button to push?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm here to speak a little bit on the ordinance that hopefully will take effect in December on the smoking prohibition.
Yep.
And the reason why I am here is because I had to report two separate incidences to my manager. One incident in his absence and the other incident where the person just said he was going to check it out, and that was about the entire effect of the whole resolution of the matter. So I would like to bring a real close scrutiny of the ordinance, because I do not see in reviewing it that a landlord or a manager responsible for a unit in a multi-unit residence that leases to tenants, residents as myself, in a senior complex. I don't see language as specific in terms of enforcement, because in section 7.5.090, it says that the city manager or a designee is to enforce the provision of this chapter. The manager, employee, et cetera, regulated by this chapter shall have the right to inform persons violating this chapter. I don't see any consequences. To inform, well, okay, so the manager goes by and checks it. And yet, the authorization for the enforcement of permits, it spells it out. It says, such enforcement includes, but is not limited to, the collection of fees and fines, expending such revenue and enforcement of the tobacco retailer permit, et cetera, et cetera. Now that's very specific. Whereas the enforcement for the violations of a multi-resident dwelling where a lot of secondhand smoke eludes throughout the corridors, the halls, and the units. So I'm here to kind of request the council to really take it to heart that in the opening statements that you made to this ordinance, there is overwhelming body of evidence indicating the adverse effects. And I understand that you are trying to be very inclusive toward both the smoker and the non-smoker. But one of the important segments of our population is missing, and that's our youth and children. In a senior center, we have grandchildren visiting. We have mothers bringing their children across the premises. We have seniors. Just today, we had lunch with a school-age
Clemencia,
population.
I appreciate what you're saying. Can you wrap up, please? And I'll have the city manager respond about enforcement, okay?
I appreciate that.
Sure.
And that's just about
Okay.
it, okay? Thank you.
Yes. Bob?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think what we'll do is direct Ms. Kennedy, I think it is, to our Deputy City Manager, Matthew Chittister. I think the comment was made that the ordinance has not gone into effect yet. It has. Enforcement is obviously tricky in this ordinance, but I think the best route is at least to have her chat with our Deputy City Manager and we see what we can't do.
Thank you. Dr. Leticia Baccia?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, members of the community. My name is Leticia Baccia, and I'm here today representing Cabrillo Unified School District. I wanted to give a special thanks to Victor Gaitan, as well as Dr. Belinda Arriaga, where we have met to collaborate on celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. The district and myself, we're looking forward to next year potentially getting your consideration and having a joint celebration between the Unified School District as well as the City of Half Moon Bay in celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you for that. And I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to simultaneously translate, so I want to say this in Spanish and then I'll say it in English. Buenas tardes, y para las familias de Bay City Flower, mi nombre es Leticia Baccia. Yo trabajo para el distrito de Cabrillo Unificado de aquí, en Half Moon Bay. Yo quería decirles a ustedes que estamos nosotros, el distrito, aquí para apoyar a sus hijos. Si ustedes piensan que ellos necesitan apoyo social o si ellos están tristes, tenemos nosotros recursos en el distrito para apoyarlos. Aunque nosotros no tenemos trabajo, nosotros sí podemos, tenemos un departamento de, se llama Family Engagement para apoyar a familias. Nosotros sí podemos apoyarlos a completar aplicaciones o referirlos a lugares donde necesitan ayuda. Y estamos aquí para apoyarlos. And so I'm going to now translate that in English. So I told the families of Bay City Flower that Cabrillo Unified School District is here to support the social and emotional well-being of their children. If they have a need to have somebody to talk to, we have the supports at the district, and although we might not have jobs, we do have different levels of support. We have a family engagement department that can help our families in completing applications or also provide referrals to appropriate organizations here in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will be considering the issue of the closure of Bay City Flowers very soon, so you'll stay tuned.
Thank
you. We have 5 proclamations and 1 graduation. It's a very full agenda today. And the first proclamation is recognizing the retirement of our 30-year city employee, Caroline Wygant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do the honor on this one as Caroline comes up to the podium. So this is a proclamation recognizing Caroline on her service. Whereas on September 11th, 1989, Caroline Wagant began her career at the City of Half Moon Bay. And whereas Caroline has served the City of Half Moon Bay as a valuable employee for over 30 years. And whereas Caroline has been an important member of many city departments, including administrative assistant to the city clerk, executive assistant to the city manager, administrative assistants to Parks and Rec, to the finance department, to personnel, to planning, to the police department. So pretty much she's been in every department. Whereas, in recognition for her work with special events and film permits, Caroline was nominated by the San Mateo County Film Commission as a finalist in the Film Liaison in California Statewide On Location Award for Public Employee of the Year. And the commission described her having a can-do attitude and a prime example of how a local city film office can support filming and see positive economic impact. And whereas Caroline is an example of excellent customer service and has been known to go the extra mile for city staff and the public, she can be described as a warm, kind face and was often the first encounter public had with city staff. Her institutional knowledge is unmatched and was someone the entire staff could count on for information. And whereas on September 12th, 2019, Caroline Wygant retired from the City of Half Moon Bay, leaving behind a legacy of quality public service. So now, therefore, be it known that the City Council of Half Moon Bay does hereby congratulate Caroline Wygant on her retirement and greatly appreciates her contributions to the Half Moon Bay community. The City Council is grateful for her many years of service and offer her best wishes and happiness for many years to come. Signed today by the Mayor, Harvey Rarbeck.
You want to say a few words, Caroline?
I would love to. Oh, thank you. This is so beautiful. It's just very strange being on this side of the podium. I just want to thank you all so much. It has been an honor serving the City of Half Moon Bay, which I absolutely love. Live here, work here. My children went to school here. My parents live here. So this is just a wonderful honor, and I thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Next, we're going to have a Clean Air Day proclamation. Jennifer is going to present the honors.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and community members. My name is Jennifer Chong. I work for the Public Works Department on sustainability issues, and I'm extremely pleased to be here today to announce Half Moon Bay's adoption of Clean Air Day for 2019. So just a little bit of background. Clean Air Day is basically the state's efforts, or the Coalition for Clean Air's efforts to try to promote sustainable efforts on this particular day, whether it be sustainable transportation, so carpool, ride your bike, planting something new, so plant some plants in your backyard, or switching out filters, or trying to consolidate your purchases. And so that's what Clean Air Day is all about, is promoting sustainable practices in your home. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a representative from Coalition for Clean Air today, but they send their support and their thanks for us considering and adopting this proclamation for them. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then we'll send this off to them tomorrow. So, whereas air pollution contributes to higher rates of cancer and heart and lung diseases, which adversely affect health, and whereas California has some of the most polluted regions in the United States, and whereas it is vital that we protect the health and well-being of our residents, visitors, and workforce, and whereas emissions from vehicles, industry, and even household sources significantly affect the natural environment, air quality, and well-being of residents, employees, and visitors of the City of Half Moon Bay, And whereas individual actions such as not idling vehicles, walking or biking to work and school, carpooling and conserving energy can directly improve air quality in our region. And whereas education about air quality can raise community awareness, encourage our community to develop better habits, and improve our community health. And whereas Californians will be joining together across the state to clear the air on October 2nd, 2019. And whereas the City of Half Moon Bay is committed to the health of our residents, workforce, visitors, and community at large. Now, therefore, be it known that the City of Half Moon Bay does hereby proclaim October 2nd, 2019 as Clean Air Day in the City of Half Moon Bay, and encourages all city employees, residents, businesses, and community members to participate in Clean Air Day to help clear the air for all Californians. And that's signed today. Thank you so much.
Those of you in the back, if you want to sit down, we have seats available here in the front. Please take advantage if you're so inclined. The next proclamation is our Welcome Week proclamation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Matthew Chittister. I'm the Deputy City Manager, and with me is Victor Gaitan, our Community Services Analyst. This proclamation I'll be sharing in English, and Victor will be sharing it in Spanish. We'd like to also do the next one at the same time, if you don't mind. So, whereas Half Moon Bay is home to people from all different backgrounds, countries, and cultures, and whereas we honor the spirit of unity that is bringing neighbors together and making our community the kind of place where diverse people from around the world feel valued and want to put down roots, and whereas, regardless of where we are born or what we look like, we are all residents of Half Moon Bay, united in our efforts to building a stronger community. And whereas, by recognizing the contributions that we all make to create a vibrant culture and a growing economy, we make our community more prosperous and more inclusive to all who call it home. And whereas community efforts that promote understanding and collaboration between residents, whether they were born in the United States or born elsewhere, are crucial in encouraging and preserving Half Moon Bay's welcoming environment. And whereas Half Moon Bay encourages the business community, civic groups, other government agencies, and community institutions to undertake their own initiatives beyond this proclamation to make Half Moon Bay a welcoming place for all. And whereas fostering a welcoming environment for all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, or place of origin, enhances Half Moon Bay's cultural fabric, economic strength, and overall prosperity for current and future generations. Therefore, be it known that the City of Half Moon Bay declares September 15th, 2019 to September 21st, 2019 to be Welcoming Week in the City of Half Moon Bay.
Matthew. Buenas noches. Voy a leer una proclamación para la Semana de Bienvenida Nacional. Considerando que personas de diferentes orígenes, países y culturas viven en Half Moon Bay y por cuanto honramos el espíritu de unidad que une a los vecinos y hace a nuestra comunidad el tipo de lugar donde diversas personas de todo el mundo se sienten valoradas y quieren echar raíces, y por cuanto, independientemente de donde nacemos o cómo nos veamos, todos somos residentes de Half Moon Bay, unidos en nuestros esfuerzos por construir una comunidad más fuerte, y por cuanto, al reconocer las contribuciones que todos hacemos para crear una cultura vibrante y una economía en crecimiento, hacemos que nuestra comunidad sea más próspera e inclusiva para todos los que viven aquí. Y por cuanto los esfuerzos de la comunidad que promueven el entendimiento y la colaboración entre los residentes, ya sea que hayan nacido en los Estados Unidos o en otro lugar, son cruciales para alentar y preservar el ambiente acogedor de Half Moon Bay. Y por cuanto Half Moon Bay alienta a la comunidad empresarial, grupos cívicos, otras agencias gubernamentales e instituciones comunitarias a emprender sus propias iniciativas más allá de esta proclamación, para hacer a Half Moon Bay un lugar acogedor para todos, y por cuanto fomentar un ambiente acogedor para todas las personas, independientemente de su raza, origen étnico o lugar de origen, mejora el tejido cultural, la fortaleza económica y la prosperidad general de Half Moon Bay para las generaciones actuales y futuras. Y ahora, por lo tanto, sea conocido que el Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Half Moon Bay declara el 15 de septiembre del 2019 al 21 de septiembre del 2019 como la semana de bienvenida en la Ciudad de Half Moon Bay.
And at this time, we'd like to present these proclamations to representatives of the Latino Advisory Council that are here tonight. If you wouldn't mind joining us up in front.
Joaquin, you want to say a few words? And Tony also could say a few words.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. I just want to say that I feel so honored to receive this piece of paper. This piece of paper means a lot to us. I just want to say that I'm glad that we are no longer in the shadows. We are recognized now as a community, and I feel so proudful to be living here in Half Moon Bay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Let's see, for the last 2 years, the Latino Advisory Council, we've been bringing this up to these meetings. The Latino community in Half Moon Bay, we feel that we belong now. And this is thanks to you. You've given us a place, the last 5 years or so that we started coming to these meetings. But the last 2 years, we feel at home. And I want to thank you. Hopefully this is just the beginning of a lot more things, a lot greater things. Because we like to work for our community. When we say our community, we don't necessarily talk about the Latino community, we talk about everybody. This is an inclusive community, very diverse community. And that's one of the things that we love about Half Moon Bay. And I want to thank you. Thank you very much.
It's only the beginning, Joaquin, thanks. Our final proclamation is the Future Leaders Civic Academy graduation. There were 20 people. Yeah, go ahead.
The Hispanic Heritage Month.
Oh, I thought that was part of the Welcome Week.
It's a second.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I set you up for that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. It's all right. It's all right.
All right, we have another proclamation regarding Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas from the early settlers of the New World to those reaching for the American dream today, Hispanics have shaped and strengthened our country. And whereas the month of September to October 15th was designated as Hispanic Heritage Month by United States Congress in 1988, and whereas Hispanic, Latino, Latina, or Latinx individuals represent a wide range of nationalities and backgrounds, including Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other cultures or origins regardless of race. And whereas September 15th was chosen to commemorate the anniversary of independence in 5 Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and September 16th for Mexico's independence. And whereas this year's theme is Hispanic Americans, a history of serving our nation, and whereas the impact of the Hispanic culture and centuries-old traditions are manifested in our state's custom and laws, whereas, like so many Americans, Hispanics and Latinos have overcome great obstacles to persevere and flourish in every sector of our society, and whereas Hispanic Americans continue to make important contributions to our society in American government, business, agriculture, armed forces, commerce, education, the arts, science, and sports, and whereas Hispanic Americans are one of the fastest growing communities in this country and represent 58.9 million or 18% of US residents, 39.3% of California's population, which signifies the nation's largest Hispanic population, and 31.5% of the population of the city of Half Moon Bay. Now therefore be it known that the City Council of Half Moon Bay declares September 15th, 2019 to October 15th, 2019 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Half Moon Bay.
I'll read that in Spanish now. Considerando que desde los primeros pobladores del Nuevo Mundo hasta los que hoy alcanzan el sueño americano, los hispanos han moldeado y fortalecido nuestro país y, por cuanto el mes del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre fue designado como el mes de la herencia hispana por el Congreso de los Estados Unidos en 1988 y considerando que las personas hispanas y latinas representan una amplia gama de nacionalidades y orígenes, incluidas las culturas y orígenes mexicanos, puertorriqueños, sudamericanos y centroamericanos, independientemente de la raza, y por cuanto el 15 de septiembre fue elegido para conmemorar el aniversario de la independencia de 5 países latinoamericanos, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras y Nicaragua, y el 16 de septiembre por la independencia de México. Y por cuanto el tema de este año es Hispanoamericanos, una historia de servir a nuestra nación, y por cuanto el impacto de la cultura hispana y las tradiciones centenarias se manifiestan en las costumbres y leyes de nuestro Estado, y por cuanto los hispanoamericanos continúan haciendo importantes contribuciones a nuestra sociedad, en el gobierno estadounidense, los negocios, la agricultura, las Fuerzas Armadas, el comercio, la educación, las artes, las ciencias y los deportes, y por cuanto los hispanoamericanos son una de las comunidades de más rápido crecimiento en este país y representan 58.9 millones de personas en el país, o el 18% de los residentes en los Estados Unidos. El 39.3% de la población de California, que representa la población hispana más grande del país, y el 31.5% de la población de la ciudad de Half Moon Bay. Ahora, por lo tanto, se resuelve que el Consejo Municipal de la ciudad de Half Moon Bay declara el 15 de septiembre del 2019 al 15 de octubre del 2019 como el mes de la herencia hispana del 2019 en la ciudad de Half Moon Bay.
And as many of you know, ALAS is a local nonprofit, started here in Half Moon Bay to serve as a cultural resource and an art resource, and now has expanded to many other areas, including mental health support and treatment here in the community. And we want to recognize them and present these proclamations to them in honor of the work that they've been doing to promote Latino culture here in Half Moon Bay, but also to support members of that community especially. Thank you.
First of all, to the City Council and to all the staff, thank you so much from the bottom of our heart, from ALAS representing our board and all the many people that work behind the scenes. ALAS is made possible because of the hard work of our families. Like Marta, I was saying, she was one of the initial moms that entered the program in 2011. And we started ALAS so that we can be proud of our culture, proud of our roots, proud of our identity, and most of all, to honor the cultural wealth and the strengths of all the families that are here today. And it's such a special night to have the recognition, thank you for the Hispanic Heritage Month, because we are in company of so many of our community. Es un orgullo ver tanta de nuestra gente aquí, porque su voz es importante. Ustedes son la esfuerzo de nuestra comunidad. Y es un orgullo este mes que están reconociendo todo lo que están haciendo para la comunidad. So I'm saying that they're the strength of the community, in many ways, the hard work that they give back. And one of the things when Rick Walchuk helped us begin the Latino Advisory is that he had the saying that we are one community. And so I want to say that I'm grateful that we do have that spirit of one community. And I know you all care on so many issues. You've been listening to us, and we're so grateful. So thank you for recognizing Allah's. The mental health grant that you gave has already gone into full effect, as you can imagine. And we're going to keep being a presence and keep working for our community. Gracias.
Thank you, Belinda. Our last item on the proclamations part of this long agenda is the Future Leaders Civics Academy graduation. There were 20 people who went into the program. I was told that very few are going to be here tonight because of some other competing events, but we will present the graduation certificates to at least one person.
Thank you, Mayor. Prior to Jonathan coming up, I did want to acknowledge the staff that work on this program. Jonathan Roisman managed this program from start to finish and did a tremendous, tremendous job. And with Colleen, Victor, Jennifer, and Karen's help, the team of them put on this program. Also want to thank our former intern, Michaela, as well as Corey, Eddie, Matt, Nicolette, Sarah, and Caroline, who all played a huge role in putting this program on. It was a great program. Staff enjoyed it. I think the students enjoyed it. And we're looking forward to next year. So, Jonathan, do you want to come up?
Good evening, City Council and members of the public. I'm proud to announce the graduation of our inaugural Future Leaders Civics Academy. It was a city-led civics course with 20 students over a 3-week period, 3 classes, 3 hours each. And during this time, students learned during week 1 about local government. Week 2, they learned about the 2020 census, how to register and pre-register to vote, and about the city's climate action and adaptation plan. And during week 3, they heard from Supervisor Don Horsley as well as taking part in a mock city council meeting that a few of you I know were able to attend, and we're very thankful for that. Unfortunately, most of our FLCA students had athletic or club commitments on Tuesday, so they couldn't make it, but I would like to list the students who did attend the course. Start from the top here. Josie Miller, Audrey Boer, Haya and Noah Moakalo, I butchered that. Nancy Savaridria, Kaylin Carrillo, Daniela Benito, Daisy Sarabia Medina, Elena Ion, Socorro Aguilar, Alexandria Schick, Dana Hammerstrom, Candelaria Lopez Martinez, Anna McMillan, Madeline Beckner, Brittany Garcia, Ashley Owen, and Sean and Abby Kennedy. And we had one student who was able to make it, and I'd like to call her up right now, Ona Weinert. We're very proud of all of you, and this is it was such a fun program, and I hope that you got something out of it.
Last Thursday at this dais, when the mock city council was here, it was an incredible event. You were the mayor, right? Did I have that? No. Sheriff. But it was really an educational experience, and I think I learned a lot about them, and I think they must have learned about how the city works. So congratulations to everybody. The Future Leaders Academy is going to happen next year, and we're hoping even more high school students participate, because they're the future of America.
Thank you.
I have 3 announcements. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. I know a lot of people want to participate in the rest of the meeting. Last Saturday, there was a CERT, that's the Community Emergency Response Team refresher rodeo and barbecue at the fire station. And I attended, as well as a lot of other people, where this was the first chance that the members who have finished CERT were able to gather together in over 20 years and refresh their skills. There were 4 different stations where you could learn about all kinds of emergency preparedness. So it was a really nice event. My thanks go to Cynthia and Emily. They know who they are. And Chief Cosgrave is here. Chief Cosgrave is the one who got me involved in CERT 10 years ago. So I'm very grateful to him. And there's an announcement about CERT basic training offered again this fall after the Pumpkin Festival. The 3-class course will begin after work on October 22nd and continue to the last weekend in October and finish the first weekend in November. You may choose Saturday or Sunday classes, and to sign up, go to CERT.com. So thank you very much for that event. I think our consciousness about emergency preparedness is much higher than it's been, and probably needs to be much higher than it is, with the possibility of wildfires, earthquakes, tsunamis. We need to be prepared. And I think the reorganization of CERTs, having a neighborhood-by-neighborhood presence, is a very good beginning in having us prepare for what could be a horrible emergency. The second event that I want to mention is this Saturday, that's the 21st, is Disaster Preparedness Day from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the County Event Center in San Mateo. And there'll be all kinds of interesting events, fun events for kids as well as grown-ups. The event is free. You have to pay for parking, $15. So if you want to find out more about what kind of emergency preparedness events are available, or please come. That's this Saturday. And if you don't go to that, instead, this Saturday, the Coastal Commission is sponsoring the Fall Coastal Cleanup Day, and there are 6 sites on the coast where you can volunteer to help clean up the coast. So please think about doing one or the other. Thank you about that. Next item is a report out from our recent closed session, and our city attorney will do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. There's nothing to report out of today's closed session, but I will, as my practice, state for the record the items that were discussed. The council met in closed session to discuss 2 items. The first was conference with real property negotiators regarding the jail barn property, regarding price and terms of potential lease agreement with the Half Moon Bay History Association. And the second item was a consultation with Captain Saul Lopez regarding threat to public services or facilities. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Catherine. City manager updates to council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public. And by the way, we just put up the flyer for the Emergency Preparedness Day.
Great,
that you
thank
mentioned.
you.
September 21st, this Friday, San Mateo County Event Center. We just put up the flyer for it, and we have other flyers for that. So we have 4 additional announcements. We'll make it quick. Matthew Chittister has the first one.
Next slide, please. I will make this very quick. If you're not going to the Emergency Preparedness Fair, or you're not doing a cleanup, or if you want to do these things in the morning, next slide, please, come in the afternoon to our Summers and Music Festival, which will be held Saturday afternoon, this Saturday, September 21st. It's from noon to 7 p.m. at Carter Park on Main Street, next to the Stone Pine Shopping Center. It's our second annual event. Last year was a great success, and so we're following up with an even bigger event. We have 4 bands with music ranging from folk to reggae to funk and rock, and it's a free, family-friendly event. There will be, as you can see up there, games for the kids, food for all, and the weather is slated to be quite beautiful, so we want to once again invite the community out to come and enjoy this free day of music and community in one of our parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Next up, Jonathan has an announcement.
Good evening, council, members of the public. We're having our second annual Elections Night Out event on September 24th. That's a Tuesday from 5 to 8 p.m. Last year was a great success. We had about 75 to 100 people attend. And this year we're really promoting pre-registration and registering to vote. And if you register or pre-register, you'll be entered into a raffle. There's going to be live music. We're going to have a DJ. There's going to be a taco bar. And we'll have city staff and members from YLI, the elections team, and the League of Women Voters. So we're hoping that we can get even more people out next year, or for this year, and we're really excited.
Next up, Jennifer Chong has an announcement from our Sustainability Department.
Next slide, please. Wonderful. So I'm so actually pleased that everyone's here because I do want to announce this upcoming free recycling event that we are having for all Half Moon Bay residents. This is the second summer cleanout event, that annual summer cleanout event. We offer free paper shredding, free compost pickup, and free e-waste recycling to all Half Moon Bay residents. So we really recommend that residents take advantage of this service because then you will have less waste inside of your house. So this year's event is taking place on Saturday, October 5th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Smithfield parking lot. So we're having a new location this year, hopefully to increase accessibility to the south. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And then, Mr. Mayor, I have one final announcement, full circle back to emergency preparedness, and right on target that you made your comments that you did about the importance of it, and that we have both Cynthia and Dave here today. So I wanted to make an announcement of an item that's coming up this week, not on Saturday, but there is a group, a very important group, I think, that meets, I would say, under the radar. It's the Emergency Services Council. And that is a council of cities of San Mateo County. Every city is represented on that group, as well as a representative from the county. And one of our council members, Councilmember Penrose, is our representative on that committee. And that committee meets quarterly and coordinates activities at a regional level for emergency response, et cetera. And so there is an item on their agenda this Thursday evening. And what this item does, it's actually kind of the follow-up part that was really necessary to an action that happened a couple months ago. So a couple months ago, there was a wonderful meeting at the Coastside Fire District offices. It was a packed house, and it was at that time that the district agreed to sponsor officially the CERT programs on the coast side. That was necessary, of course, for all the obvious reasons, but then within 5 days, Cynthia and her team applied for a grant, which was time sensitive, and they got the grant for $60,000. So that was great, but the follow-up steps still needed to be taken. So I don't know all the details, and I might be getting some of this not quite right, but the council has to actually vote at this meeting to allow the Coastside Fire Protection District to then swear in local CERT-trained individuals to be disaster services workers. So this is an action that was needed. There's been a lot of talk about it. It's really, I think, the follow-up step to what happened 2 months ago. So I just wanted to announce that's happening and make everyone aware. And hopefully our council member Penrose will do us right at the meeting and promote this stuff.
You spent $15.
No, that's a different thing. Thank you, Bob. The consent calendar, does anyone want to pull any item on the consent calendar? No. May I have a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, if
Yes,
I may
go
pull
ahead.
one.
Sure.
I don't know if "pull" is the right word, but we do have to clarify an item. It is item 1C, approval of Carnoustie Phase 4 final map and subdivision improvement agreement. So the resolution needed to be corrected, and I believe a fresh resolution has been provided to you, so I'll turn it over to City Attorney Catherine Engbert, and she'll explain the modifications that were necessary.
Thank you. Yes, this is the final map for the Carnoustie Phase 4 and subdivision improvement agreement. This item is basically a ministerial item that certifies that the applicant has checked all the boxes that were required as part of the vesting tentative map approval from May of 2019. And the resolution has been amended. The copies are on the dais here as well as at the table, simply to button it up to the final map had offers of dedication of a emergency vehicle access easement as well as a public service easement. And this resolution formally accepts those offers of dedication, as well as rejects an offer of dedication for a public utility easement, which just simply can be reconsidered in the future once the improvements are actually installed. So that's a routine item. The applicant is here if there are any questions, and as is Maz, the city engineer, who took a brief leave from his parental leave to be here tonight if there are any questions. And I do also want to acknowledge Evelyn Moran, assistant city engineer, who assisted on this item. If you will indulge me, I will just read into the record the amendments to the resolution so that should you choose to approve this, you can just state that as, as amended per the recitation of the city attorney. So there is a new whereas clause which states, whereas on the final map, the developer offers in dedication to the city for public use one or more of each of the following: emergency vehicle access easements, public utility easements, and public service easements. That's the new whereas clause. And then in the actual resolution provisions, there are several actions that the council is taking. One, approves the final map included as Exhibit A, with new language added, subject to revisions to correct clerical errors and conform the final map to this resolution, and delegates to the city engineer and the city attorney authority to determine that such revisions are acceptable under this resolution and applicable law. Two, approves the subdivision improvement agreement included as Exhibit B. Three, accepts on behalf, and this is new language, accepts on behalf of the city for public use all offered emergency vehicle access easements and public service easements. Four, this is also new, rejects any offer and dedication of a public utility easements, which offer may be reconsidered as provided in Government Code Section 66477.2. And five, authorizes the city manager, city clerk, or city engineer as appropriate to execute and record the final map as revised. And that's the entirety of the edits to the resolution.
Thank you, Catherine.
I move that we accept the items on the consent calendar. 1A, waive the reading of resolutions and ordinances. 1B, funding agreement between the City of Half Moon Bay and the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2019-2020. 1C, approval of the Carnoustie Phase 4 final map and subdivision improvement agreement as amended this evening. 1D, grant writing and advocacy services agreement with Townsend Public Affairs Incorporated. And 1E, adoption of the Green Infrastructure Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The consent calendar passes. As stated earlier, we're going to skip to item 3A, which is the closure of Bay City Flowers, and I believe Belinda Arriaga is going to make a presentation.
Thank you. I was invited to say a few words, and then I think there's some in the community that would like to speak as well. Um, So imagine that years ago, families began their journey from Mexico to this beautiful little coastal town of Half Moon Bay to begin their life here with the dream and hopes for a future built on hard work at Bay City Nursery. For so many, Bay City Nursery has not been just a job. It has been a lifeline of economic support as well as a home and family for so many. The closure of Bay City Nursery has been a shock to our community. Many have worked there for years, some up to more than 20, even 30 years that we've heard. And many come from a family where both the husband and the wife worked there, and even now stories of mothers and daughters working there, generations of time. There are also a significant number of hardworking seniors that have dedicated their life to this career and to working at Bay City Nurseries. At Bay City Nursery, it's been beautiful to see how they've woke up every day with an enthusiasm to make a difference in their job, to grow these beautiful plants that we all benefit from and flowers. And the Bay City Nursery has been an economic engine for our Latino community. The closure of its doors means that so many will face challenges that are not only limited to job loss, but a displacement that is not easily replaced given the years there that they've worked, their training, their age, and critical need that is clearly evident. We recognize that any job loss is difficult, but this one is especially complicated as it hits the most vulnerable population in our community. Tonight, our hearts and spirit are in solidarity with all the Bay City employees that are here tonight that have come to stand together with us to share that we are concerned and that they're not alone. This devastating job loss calls for all of us to rally together to find solutions to help those that are and will be unemployed when they close their final doors in November. Thank you to the City of Half Moon Bay for putting this as an agenda item and for prioritizing care to our community. And I would like to take this time to recognize all of those that are here as Bay City workers that have come tonight to be present. So, si todos que trabajan en la florería de Bay City están apoyando, si pueden parar en este momento. And these are the beautiful faces, the mothers, the fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, community members that have really made this journey and created a life here in Half Moon Bay through Bay City. And so our prayer is that you all will help us to find solutions, creative solutions, and to make a way. So, no sé si puedo invitar unos 5 personas que quieren decir algo al concilio. Es su momento de decir algunas palabras, si gustan. Y yo me paro aquí contigo para que no están solos, okay? I asked for if we have like 3 to 5 people that would like to say a few words, and I'll stand by them here.
Buenas noches y gracias por la oportunidad de representar. Como ya lo he escuchado de mis compañeros, estamos en shock por la reciente noticia. Yo soy una de las personas que trabajo ahí por 40 años.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. We are all in shock because of the news of the closing of the facility. I've been working in this place for 40 years.
And, estoy muy conmovida porque sé que como somos familias completas, como empezamos desde jóvenes ahí, no hemos tenido, algunas personas no han tenido más que este trabajo.
Yes, we are in shock because most of us, they are complete families. We have been involved in this job, and now that we are losing this.
Hay personas que son parejas y solamente el soporte de ellos es el que va a casa. Tienen estudiantes que están empezando a colegio y universidad y he escuchado que algunos están ya sufriendo las consecuencias y pueden continuar sus estudios.
Most of them, these couples, they have their children, even their youth, they are in college and university, and they have been supporting them through this work, and now they are facing this great challenge.
Algunos son madres solteras, tienen solamente el soporte por esa persona. Otros son solamente hijos que ya han trabajado ahí desde jóvenes y llevan el soporte a la casa.
Some of them are single parents that are supporting their families, and others are children that are continuing working and supporting their families through their work.
Algunos de nosotros somos personas que hemos trabajado por más de 20, 30, hasta más años ahí y estamos a punto de retirarnos y no estábamos preparados porque tenemos gastos pendientes y esto nos está afectando.
Some of us, we have been working there for 30, 40 years, and we are just in the brink of retirement, and we were not prepared for this news and for this situation. And this is affecting us in a very deep way.
Aparte de la situación económica, he encontrado entre mis compañeros emocionalmente se está afectando mucho y esto puede ser algo grave y la economía en nuestra área va a decaer en muchas áreas.
This is also affecting their mental condition. Most of them are really in a very bad mood. And this is going to affect us very deeply in the economy of the city too.
Lo más fuerte fue que personas fueron despedidas en una razón de minutos.
One of the strongest things is that some people were just being left in a question of minutes.
Y no sabemos si esas personas se encuentran trabajo inmediato y puedan continuar con sus viviendas y gastos personales.
And we don't know if these people are going to find a new job very soon and continue supporting their expenses to support their family and their houses.
Porque estas personas vivían continuamente a veces sobre el pago mensual de su cheque.
Because these people were living just check by check.
Es todo, gracias. Espero que tenga alguna ayuda considerable sobre toda esta situación y que todos mis compañeros estamos esperando alguna recompensa o algo que pueda ayudarnos en el futuro. Gracias.
Thank you for considering us, and some of our companions here are waiting or expecting to receive some kind of reward after this. And it's hard for us.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
¿Alguien más gusta decir alguna palabra o detalle? Con eso. So she represented their voice and what they wanted to share.
I have some blue cards for members of the public who want to speak about this horrible event, starting with Joaquin Jimenez.
Coming back. Good evening. Well, it's a sweet and sour moment. The effect in our community, as you can see, we have at least 100 members of the Latino community that work at the nursery, Bay City Flowers. On Tuesday, I received a call from one of the supervisors of the Bay City, and he mentioned to me, what was going on. As soon as I had time, I went by, my usual route. During lunch hour, I visit the Bay City Flowers company to see any kind of services, any other, doing outreach for some of the programs that we have in the area, with Puente, down in Pescadero. And then I heard, early that day, there was a meeting, and about 60 people were laid off. 60 people. And it's expected by November 10th to be in at least another 300 people. So now when we talk about family, you heard from Señora Rosa, there's members of our community that have been working there for 40, 30, 20 years. That's a long time. That's a career. That's a whole life. Earlier today, we were talking about, emergency preparedness. This is an emergency. This is an emergency. It's a big hit, not just for the Latino community, not just for the farming community, but also for the economy. It is unfortunate that a couple days ago, somebody shared an email, from our city staff, about it is not your problem. Guess what? It is your problem. You are an elected official. When you get elected, things like this happen, and you have to be prepared for how you're going to handle this. Our community is in great need right now. You heard there's a lot of emotions going. There's fear. On top of everything that's going on, with our 45 still somewhere out there, all the things that he's doing, about the public charge going on, about the ICE raids, happening, and now this, community. So this is an emergency. How is the city of Half Moon Bay prepared for this? You heard from Señora Rosa, they were not prepared. They were getting close to retirement. We contacted county officials, different departments from the county, BHRS, one of them, because we're gonna need services. Right now, as I know, Coast I Hope here in Half Moon Bay, Puente de la Costa Sur, down in Pescadero, are getting prepared to provide assistance for our community. How is the city of Half Moon Bay? How are you going to help us? Because we're going to need your help. This is our community. As far as I know, there's already people that were laid off on Tuesday. They already left the area. They could not deal with it. There's nothing else they could do. They're already of age, over 60, made a career out of this, getting ready to retire. Now what? Who else is going to hire them at 65? If all you prepare for is, providing us with these beautiful flowers, these beautiful plants. That was your whole career. There's nothing else you could do. Not even not even farm work. Even at the age of 40, I would not be able to take as much, labor and I was being out of the farm. Now imagine at the age of 60. But they have to make a living somehow. So it is an emergency. We urge the city of Half Moon Bay, gives us some hope, the services that we need, the community needs. Because, we're in pain. We are in pain. So one of the first things that we need to do, maybe have meetings, emergency meetings with city staff, city council staff, mayor, other agencies, the county, something. We have to figure something out. We're gonna be, doing outreach, promoting services that we can provide, assistance, support, anything. We're gonna reach out to the churches, counseling centers, organizations out in the city, San Francisco, anywhere, because we have to. So please let us know how you're going to be able to help us, because we need help. It's an emergency. Emergency preparedness. This is it. This is a test. Are you prepared for it? Probably not. I wasn't. Now imagine something greater than this. How are we going to respond to that? So this is a test. We're going to have, comes November 10, we're going to have about 400 people unemployed, community members. That you have to pay the bills. That you have to provide food for the kids. Put food on the tables. How are we going to do this? So we have roughly about 2 months where it comes, November 10th. We're listening. We're getting ready. We will be ready to your command. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. That's what we're here for, to figure out what to do. Joanne Rakowski, followed by Mike Ferreira.
Good evening, Mayor Rohrabaugh, members of the council, and the community. Belinda and Joaquin, you're a very hard act to follow. But I am here grateful, first of all, that you set this time aside. And I'm here on behalf of the Immigrant Advocacy Group, or IAG. We are a bunch of volunteers in the community who formed with the goal of providing community, developing community and support for our Latinx neighbors. So tonight we stand in solidarity with them as they grapple with this terrible loss of employment and trying to figure out what happens next. We know that Bay City Flowers is mostly on county land, but we urge you to make sure that any provisions within the city requirements that pertain to that portion that is city land, that they are stringently applied. And then we urge you also to work hard to assist us, and Joaquin really said it so eloquently, in terms of all ways to help individuals find other employment and other ways to solve their day-to-day problems as we go forth. So thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Good evening, Mayor Rohrabaugh, Council. Mike Ferreira, speaking tonight for the Sierra Club and to some degree for the Committee for Green Foothills. Were Lenny not being honored tonight by the History Association in Burlingame, she too would be here for this topic. Both of our organizations have strong environmental justice platforms, and if ever we saw that arise here on the coast side, this is it. I know there are limitations on what the city can do because most of this is in the county. And I think that to some degree, some of the folks here understand it, but I also know what's in your hearts. And there are things that I think the city can do in terms of using its bully pulpit, using its knowledge of the system to help inform these people. Because the one thing that you take from Joaquin's speech is all these folks are in such an unknown now. And the city can go a long way toward helping to fill that unknown. And I've never seen anything quite like this in all the time that I've lived on the coast. And I doubt any of you have either. But I would just close by saying that go where your heart goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Ideas? No? Go for it.
There is no easy solution to the problem. That's obvious. One of the issues, as Mr. Ferrara pointed out, is that most of the people that work at Bay City live at Moon Ridge, and that's county. That's not us. But the folks that are leaving Bay City are going to be without a home as well as without a job. So it's not as simple as it might seem to be. I think the city can do a lot by talking with the county, and I think we've already started some talks with the county to see what the county can do about the housing situation. I think it's reasonable to assume that the city could help with some sort of financial support. But if we do such a thing, it's got to be done in a way that the financial support is to our social service agencies here on the coast. We can't give money directly to people. That's not our job. But we could help the social services agencies out in their help, in their interest in helping folks. That's a thought, anyway.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think we could provide, what I would like to see is where the city and some other agencies can provide counseling, help provide money for counseling services. So a group like Alice, for example, can hire extra resources to help people with the mental stress, job counseling, how to put food on the table, things that I'm not even thinking about. Taking care of children, if people have to be away looking for other jobs, support from the schools, a concerted effort. And I think the resources are in this community to provide those extra services. And, there's short-term and then there's long-term planning around this. I think we'll have to bring together a group of folks. We could be the catalyst as the city. Frankly, I don't care if certain things are in the county and not in the city. These are our citizens, our neighbors, period.
Anybody else?
So, yeah, from my perspective, first of all, I'm sorry that this happened, and I really appreciate you coming to talk about it. I am not prepared to present any solutions yet. It's kind of a shock to me, too, as I've been learning about it. But my pledge to you all is that we will come together as a council and we will talk about this issue in greater detail when we have time to think about it, take it in, and we will come back with what we can possibly do, and we will come back with solutions. So you talked about the hope aspect. I'm providing, as best I can, some semblance of hope for what we can do, but right now, it's quite a bit to take in, and there's a lot of thought that needs to go into it, so.
My heart goes out to you. This is a heartbreaking set of circumstances. It is an emergency. It's a shock. I know that some council members have said they're not, sure about what to think about it tonight. I'm sure you're still in shock yourselves. I don't think we have a lot of time to pull together sort of a plan, though. And I think we need to understand, the full scope of the need in the community. So it's hard to come up with solutions if we don't understand first, like what the need is and where everybody is at. And then I think we need to understand the full range of services that might be available. I know that I went online and identified a couple of resources that I've shared. There's probably more, but, and I know that there's been some conversations with city staff about pulling together an event where that information is shared, where people can start the process of enrolling or applying or whatever it is they need to do. I think that needs to happen pretty quickly, and I understand Supervisor Horsley's been on an extended vacation. So I think he's back shortly, if not now, and the county needs to be pulled in too. So I think everybody's head spinning, but we know it's a very serious problem and that it affects all ages and skill levels. So there's going to have to be some attention to detail, not just a blanket solution to the community, but individuals and individual families are going to have different issues. So people have to talk, we have to understand the scope of the problem and pull together as many resources as we can. I can't say tonight what the city would be willing to do. Again, we don't understand the full scope of the problem or what's appropriate for us to do. I do know that we can be, as someone said, a catalyst to help move things along and to pull that stuff together. We can be, the cheerleader, and we'll definitely do that. So I know that staff is already working on some kind of an event, and I think we need to move post haste to get that going. People are wondering, what next? And being in that situation of uncertainty is frightening, So we don't want to leave people in that very stressful situation for too long. So we will work with you. We can make that commitment tonight.
I think that the most important thing that we can do is try to get jobs for the people who've been laid off. I know that's not easy, but I think in terms of solutions that are long-term rather than just providing temporary rental assistance for a month or short-term money, that we need to get jobs. Now, having said that, I don't know how to do it. One suggestion has been to have a job fair. One possibility is to have the job fair at Bay City Flowers, if they could go along, because everybody, we know how to get there. You've worked there. We need to pull in as many people as possible to give jobs to people, even if they have to be retrained, even if it's less money than they're making now. But from my perspective, and I understand how traumatic it is to lose your job. I've lost my job. So I think that's the direction we need to work with the county, with the unemployment office, with the Chamber of Commerce, with ALAS, with Puente, with Coastside Hope, to try to identify as many jobs that would be okay for the laid-off workers to take. Having said that, I don't think it's easy, but that seems to me the direction we need to head in. Anybody else?
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe the very first step is to try to get some of the players together, to get the city staff together with county with Coastside Hope, Puente, Alas, with the church, with the Catholic Church certainly, the Chamber of Commerce, and maybe groups like the Rotary Club, the Odd Fellows, anybody that does charitable work here on the coast may have an interest in being part of the discussion. And if we could have that meeting fairly soon, then brainstorming, some ideas will come out of that, and we may be able to start moving in the right direction. I'm not opposed to putting some money toward the solution, but I don't think just throwing money is the solution. I think Mayor Rarbach's point about getting jobs is critical. Short-term help with food and those sorts of things are things that our town has been very successful at working with, and we can get the people that provide food already to help chip in. I think number one step is to get the major donors together, the major players together who might come up with the ideas. And then the second step might be calling a community meeting and having the community itself get involved. I think there are a lot of well-meaning people out there that would love to be able to help. There might be somebody that wants to hire a gardener or a housekeeper or, I don't know, somebody to paint their house. I don't know, but I think there are people out there willing to help if we ask. We just have to have a forum to do that. So that would be my suggestion.
So I really want to emphasize how important it is to define the problem, to identify the individual needs in as much detail as possible. I've already spoken with one foundation and said, we're probably interested, but we need to know, what the need is. So, not just for the city and the community to ask for help, but what is the help that's needed? So I think that, who, what, all that stuff needs to be put down, because that's what a private foundation or nonprofit's gonna want to see. So I really want to emphasize how important that is. And I would also bring in the Catholic Archdiocese, so not just the local church, but I think this is a problem that's big enough that the Archdiocese needs to step in as well. They have more resources than our local parish, and may have some experience with these sorts of issues. So I would definitely include the Archdiocese in whatever meeting that we have.
We also might get some ideas actually from some of our local labor unions who have expertise when a major employer closes down and know, hey, these are the resources, these are the agencies that you contact, this is how we offer help. So we might be able to get some thoughtful ideas from them as well.
Yeah, go to the podium.
It's just a quick announcement to the community. Un anuncio, si viven en Pescadero, por favor, vayan a la oficina de Puente que den sus información, lo que necesitan, las sugerencias que dijo la miembro del concilio, para estar preparados, hacer una lista de sus necesidades. Si viven en Half Moon Bay, Granada, Moss Beach, Montara, por favor vayan a Coastside Hope o a la oficina de Alas con Belinda y con Emma Moctezuma, para que la ciudad de Half Moon Bay sepa sus necesidades. Lo que ellos quieren saber, qué es lo que necesitan, qué es lo que van a necesitar en los próximos meses, para poder ayudarles individualmente, porque no todos estamos en el mismo tema, sino que ocupamos saber qué es lo que ustedes necesitan directamente y ocupan ir a la oficina de Puente en Pescadero, o la oficina de Alas, o la oficina de Coastside Hope, por favor. Y la ciudad de Half Moon Bay ya escucharon lo que van a preparar para ustedes. Así que por favor comenten eso con sus compañeros que no están aquí, para que sepan que la ciudad de Half Moon Bay está haciendo algo. Y por favor, no se desesperen, si ocupan ayuda, consejería, hay servicios en Puente, en Pescadero, aquí en Half Moon Bay, en Alas, y parece que el distrito escolar de Half Moon Bay también tiene otros servicios, y el condado de San Mateo también tiene más servicios. por favor, reciban esos servicios, pídanlos, porque se van a necesitar. No es fácil ser despedido, no es fácil perder el trabajo, hay mucho estrés, les va a dar ansiedad y para eso también hay ayuda. Por favor, no se desesperen y pidan su ayuda, por favor. Y no están solos, ya ven que no están solos, ya saben. She has a question about Moonridge.
She's asking about the housing, like how long will they have the housing because of agriculture? But I want to clarify that I spoke to Norma, and Norma said that it shouldn't be a problem. So at this point, they don't see that as an issue because they entered as agriculture. So that's what we know right now.
But if they can't pay the rent,
Well, that's different.
that's
But
very different.
we're talking about the agricultural qualification, because when you live at Moonridge, you're supposed to be in farm worker housing, but Moonridge is going to work with them on that piece. Es lo que estaba preguntando, ¿verdad? Yo hablé con Norma y Norma dijo que Moonridge va a trabajar con ustedes. So es algo que tenemos que trabajar con ellos y con condado. They're just wondering to know, like, if they get a job outside of agriculture, will their housing be at risk? And if the city and the county can support maybe having that dialogue about that, still having a right to be at Moonridge or maintain their living situation at Moonridge, because it'll be out of the scope of farm worker housing. So many things are interdependent and interlocked in this situation. Pero es muy buen punto porque ya estamos hablando con ellos sobre eso y vamos a seguir peleando por eso también. So, juntos, no sean callados como llegaron hoy, es muy importante y juntos vamos a trabajar con ustedes.
Thank you.
I just want to translate to you what I said to the community. If they live in Pescadero, they can go to Puente and request some of the services that Puente is providing. If they live in Half Moon Bay or the coast, from Ontario to Half Moon Bay, they can go to Alas, or they can also go to our coast, I hope, to make sure that we all figure out, what to do about this emergency. So that's the announcement that I made to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Anybody else? No? Rest assured, the city council is very concerned. We will try to work with our partners. We understand that it is an emergency, and we'll do what we can. And from my perspective, I hope we'll work as much as possible to try to get employment for the people who've been laid off.
Does the staff have anything to add to this discussion this evening?
Thank you for asking, Councilmember Ruddick. I was just turning my microphone on. I was trying to get the mayor to look over this way.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add, ideas at this point. I am like Councilmember Eisem. It's shocking, and I think it needs to think in. But I did hear the comments that were made from the council, obviously also from the community. And I guess what struck me at the end was Councilmember Ruddick's comment that, we don't have a lot of time. So as we start to kind of plan and strategize, we have to move somewhat quickly. And the other comment was her comment about us being a catalyst, and I would even say a facilitator in helping to connect people to services, and maybe being, I think I heard the word bully used a little bit. I don't know if that's the right word, but we do have contacts. We can get to people in a more insistent way, and I think we can do that. So we had a meeting that occurred on last Friday And I thank Belinda and others for setting that up. There was about 8 of us at that meeting. 2 of the council members, the mayor and Councilmember Penrose were there. I thought that was a very good, productive meeting. We didn't solve anything yet, but we had what I thought was a great dialogue. And so what I took was, I think we should, that group or that core group, or maybe that group expands a little bit. Maybe people come in and out, but maybe keep it to around 8 to 10 people, meets weekly. Again, to the time element, this is happening over the next 60 days. And so I think by us meeting with the right people, bringing in some of the people that were suggested today, in and out, coming up with ideas, just keeping that dialogue going for the next 8 to 10 weeks, I think is important. So that's the first thing we can do, is say, okay, let's meet, work with Belinda and others to decide who comes to that meeting. Again, don't make it too big, but the right people. We'll coordinate that meeting. We'll have a staff person there, and we'll do that every week as this starts to play out.
Okay, it's a start. There's been a request to have a little break, and I imagine a lot of people would like to leave now. So why don't we meet back here at 8:45 to continue with the ordinances and public hearings part of the meeting. Thank you all. Amazing.
Get some moving.
That's interesting. Where's Robert? Yeah, anyone know where he is? Yeah, we're back in order. Unless you have any strong feelings. Okay? Do we want to wait for Bob?
Probably do.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The item before you is consideration of an ordinance amending our campaign contributions code. Following the last City Council election, the City Council reviewed the campaign contribution limits and directed staff to return with an ordinance that would amend the limits to $250 for an individual contribution, $500 for a contribution from an organization, and setting the limit to $1,500 of the balance a candidate can loan themselves. So the staff recommendation is to conduct a public hearing and introduce on first reading this ordinance, and staff is available for any questions the council may have.
I open the public hearing about this proposed ordinance about campaign finance. Anybody wish to speak? I close the public hearing. Bring it back to council.
I move that we introduce on first reading an ordinance amending Chapter 1.30 of the Half Moon Bay Muni Code, contributions and loans to city council candidate campaigns.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? I think we're heading on the way to financial transparency. I think that's a really good step. Thank you all.
Did you want to say anything additional, Jessica? Okay.
The next item is adoption of the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, mitigated negative declaration, and mitigation monitoring and reporting programs. Jill will present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Rohrabaugh, City Council, and community members. Staff is really delighted to be here tonight to bring you the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. It is actually the first ever Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan for Half Moon Bay. It will establish a network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities that are intended to serve the entire community of Half Moon Bay, and in a way that we have not been able to do so in the past. With that, we'll plunge into this. The city manager was wanting to present this first slide, but I know what he wanted to say a little bit, and if I miss it, we can give him a chance when he gets back in. I know he's working with folks outside the door. It's really relevant that you're seeing this on the year where you've prioritized transportation demand management. Adoption of this plan is definitely within the realm of the kinds of things that can be accomplished with transportation demand management, because it increases the capacity for alternate modes. So he's really happy that you are considering the delivery of this now. The presentation tonight, well, there you are. City Manager, I just gave your slide and you can close it. We'll go over a quick background, and I want to really focus on a few remaining considerations that were of particular importance to the Planning Commission when they saw this a few weeks ago, and then acknowledge the environmental review that was conducted, and bring you into plan adoption, where we also have some additional materials for your consideration based on some letters that you received over the last few days. One of the key things about this plan is Council directed preparation of the bicycle and pedestrian master plan concurrently with the Parks master plan. And this was really good for the community because there's a lot of overlap, and both of these plans were important and in weight for the kinds of input that your different committees and commissions could give them support. It was also of note, though, that we had to make sure that both of these plans were consistent with the Certified Local Coastal Program, and we've also been using them to inform the draft land use plan policies that we've been working so hard on, and also consistent with your general plan. You have seen this before. You, in fact, one of the most important things that Council did in getting this going was establish a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee, and they first started meeting in May 2017. Having that committee qualifies the city for a number of grants, as does having an adopted bicycle and pedestrian master plan. You also last saw a draft of the plan in just over a year ago when you directed completion of the environmental review, and you also gave some direction to staff about making some revisions to the draft plan, which we did, and we can get into that later. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee oversaw development of the plan. They had multiple meetings, including a joint study session with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has seen the plan in different formats, but they most recently saw it on August 27th, where they recommended that Council approve the plan, adopt the mitigated negative declaration, and they also have some other considerations for you. Noting that outreach was all over town in different formats, including a survey, a bicycle tour. There was a meeting at Moonridge about this plan. We were at the farmers market, and we're also happy. I think earlier we had a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee here. I'm not sure if they're still here, but they were pitching the plan all over town. So the plan, to get over this part of the presentation quickly, because you saw this in depth about a year ago. The plan covers pedestrian improvements, bicycle and pedestrian joint facilities, and then specifically for bikes. And it's thinking about all of these modes from a perspective of commuting, recreation, short trips, long trips, etc. One of the things that was really sensitive for this plan is being very mindful of the coastal zone requirements, and so the pedestrian orientation for the plan identified specific coastal access pedestrian zones in addition to neighborhood walking areas and places around schools that require special treatment. With respect to the bicycle recommendations, you'll note in the plan the standard definitions of, for example, a Class 1 facility. You'll hear people refer to them that way. That's a bike path. It's separate from the road, and it's for bicycles and pedestrians. It's like the coastal trail. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
They're just like tilted for beautifully. Yeah. Does it move?
Push the two pieces of the base together. Make it a sharper angle.
Wait, you're getting help here.
There we go. We got it.
You got it? Okay.
Oh, that's better, yeah. Nice.
Now we can see. Boom.
Yeah.
Get brightness. Now we're all set.
All right, clicking right along. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee identified a number of priorities which City Council, you adjusted them about a year ago. And we want to highlight, just acknowledge a couple because they're so important for establishing a much better distributed network, in particular the East Side Parallel Trail. That is the kind of the mirror image of what the Naomi Patridge Trail has been, and it is intended to be city limit to city limit, parallel to Highway 1, east of Highway 1. You've actually already seen segments of this in the planning phase with the Terrace Signal project, and the staff has also been going out for grants for different segments of the trail, and this is one of the things that actually your General Plan Advisory Committee had made a consensus statement about. So this is a really exciting facility that would serve the whole city. Crossing improvements, in particular 92 and Highway 1, the idea, just as one example of a bike boulevard to serve the Hatch Elementary School. And then, of course, there's bike lanes, and these are just a few that are called out because they were considered to be priority areas. The plan looks, it's visionary, big projects, small projects. There's, as you saw, the plan is in depth with tables regarding small projects, such as things that are called spot improvements, really simple crossings, and also best practices. Some of the ideas here are that these improvements get incorporated into projects that the city is doing anyway. So roadway improvements, anything going on with Highway 1, et cetera. Also, the plan is accompanied by a set of guidelines. This is important because the city has engineering standards that are adopted, and they don't have a lot of variety, and they're quite rigid. And it's hard for engineering standards to be as flexible as the Half Moon Bay community wants them to be, wants to have custom treatments throughout their neighborhoods. And that's what these guidelines are trying to do, and it gives just a really nice range of approaches to how to do things. I only have 2 slides showing a couple examples, but you have access to look at some others. This is just a traffic calming example. This one with the Green Street, its idea, of course, is relevant to other projects that you're already working on. For example, you adopted the Green Infrastructure Plan tonight, and having guidelines that incorporate drainage features like that into bicycle and pedestrian improvements to a streetscape relates to that. Okay. That's the background. Let's talk about the studies, because this is really what was the grist that the Planning Commission was working on. The plan includes a series of studied areas for pedestrian use as well as for bicycles and pedestrians. They are represented on the map that you see in fuzzy purple lines and pink lines. The intention here is to acknowledge a conceptual location for potential future corridors, and at the same time, be really clear that these alignments are not yet known. These can be challenging areas to plan. There's a lot of variables. There may be environmentally sensitive habitat areas, hazards such as erosion, property ownership, land use, compatibility concerns, etc. So there's a slew of those things. They are all acknowledged in your plan, and despite the challenges around them, these are things that are of great interest to your community, and some of them, in fact, have been on planning maps for a long time. The first thing I want to talk about is the Pilarcitos Creek Trail, because that was a priority project of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and it was, you directed that it should be made into a study west of Highway 1, and now you've received communication from the Cypress Cove, a number of homeowners there that are requesting that you reconsider this as a study for the east side of, actually east of John L. Carter Memorial Park. And I'm sorry, I don't have this here, so I can't put a pointer on it. Right now, west of Highway 1, it's shown as a fuzzy pink line, which is what you directed us to do. On the other side, it's shown as a green dashed line where it is not built yet. And then between Oak Avenue Park and then under the highway, it's a solid green line because it's already there. The Pilarcitos Creek Trail is implemented for that central section. And so what you've heard is this concern about its alignment relative to the Cypress Cove neighborhood. Staff wants to just note a couple options for council, and one of them is to keep it the way that it is in the draft plan, being very clear that there's a note on the plan map as well as elsewhere in the document about creekside trails, and that the alignments are not, they're meant to be conceptual, and they're not meant to pin down even which side of the creek the trail is on. It is possible, for example, that the Pilarcitos Creek Trail in that area may need to divert away from the creek and actually go up Stone Pine if there isn't enough room. So there's enough flexibility the way that the plan is drafted as you have it. On the other hand, if you'd like to consider a different approach and put that in that same pink study designation, I've actually prepared an amendment to your attachment 8 that we'll talk about in a little bit, but it would incorporate the east end of the Pilarcitos Creek Trail as a study, and I can hand that out for you when you're getting ready to make some more considerations. So I'm sorry I didn't have that earlier. Happy that I finished it though. Okay, the other studies that were really discussed quite a bit by the Planning Commission in August were these are 3 studies that were put in the plan as pedestrian only. They include the Vista Trail, the Beechwood Path, and Frenchman's Creek Trail. And I go back a couple slides again just to show you where those are. They are shown as purple fuzzy lines, and the Vista Trail, its alignment is not known. There's some real need to avoid areas that are in conservation, they're preserved for conservation, specifically Area A, which was part of the Dykstra Ranch Settlement Agreement, which is next to the Pacific Ridge development. That's the one that's kind of running north-southish up kind of in the low hillside there. And then it crosses the Frenchman's Creek Trail concept area. Again, the alignment of that is not known. It needs to be studied if it becomes a priority and would require study in the future. Then there's a little bar that you can see between the Grandview neighborhood and Highland Park. That's meant to represent some kind of path in Beechwood. And it doesn't have to be one, and it doesn't have to be there. The idea is that there could be a passive pathway in Beechwood, knowing that there's environmental constraints, and in fact knowing that the path would have to be aligned away from wetlands or possibly put on areas where it was elevated on boardwalk kind of configuration. So there's a lot of ways to do that. For these three, the Planning Commission said, well, gosh, we know that the BPAC, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, really wanted to consider bikes in these areas. And staff discussed this with them, and we really encouraged them to, because we had had a lot of feedback through the land use plan update process, sensitivity about these areas. We encouraged them to consider them for pedestrians. And that's how the plan was drafted. And what the Planning Commission said a few weeks ago was, look, these are just studies. We should study them more and study them for other modes, because it's possible that pedestrian use where, walkers who linger long might have a different kind of impact than a cyclist who is moving through the space, and we just need to consider the different configurations of these spaces, and we don't want to rule it out before we even start to study it. And that was prepared then for you as a consideration in Attachment 8. The Commission had an in-depth discussion about this and did not want to specifically recommend that you adopt the plan with this change, but that you talk about it and decide what you prefer. And so we've prepared language for you to incorporate that if you wish for one or all three of those. There's one other fuzzy purple line there. It's on Wave Crest Road. It is not proposed to be changed because that's just meant to be a little pedestrian walking path because the bikes are handled on the low volume roadway there. For all of these, staff just wants to note a few things. We understand there's a need for rigorous fact-based research before these kinds of areas get developed. This came out of our Planning Commission input. It has to be done to be consistent with the Coastal Act and the local coastal program. We conferred about all of these areas with our land use plan policy advisor, who has given us guidance about when different kinds of facilities of these types have actually been allowed, not just near ESHA, near buffers, in buffers, but in ESHA, and that the Coastal Commission has approved these things in certain cases. We're not proposing to do that. We're really mindful that this needs to be done sensitively, and some of them may be found to not be feasible. And that's been clear with the BPAC. It doesn't mean, though, that your community doesn't aspire to consider these improvements. So the Planning Commission recommended that you consider this, and they were very comfortable with the rigor that would come with such a study. If you have any questions about those, please let me know. And I'm getting to the end here. We need, for good measure, to talk about the CEQA work that was done. That's the environmental review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. An initial study was prepared. It was circulated for the mandatory 30 days and submitted to the state clearinghouse. We received only 2 comments. One was regarding tribal consultation, and we provided a response on that because we have fulfilled all of our obligations, and it's something that we're not quite sure why they don't have that recorded, but we have it all documented, and we took care of that. The only other comment on the CEQA document was from Caltrans, and they merely asked us to make sure we get encroachment permits if we're in their right-of-way. So really limited kinds of comments on our CEQA document. There are mitigation measures these are things that need to be implemented for any project, in particular relevant to biological resource evaluations for this. And then we have a mitigation monitoring and reporting program that goes with it. So what do you get with this CEQA document? There's such a range of project types in your bicycle and pedestrian master plan. With this CEQA coverage, a number of projects that are in existing roadway width may even be exempt on their own. There are quite a few projects in here that will be covered by this programmatic CEQA approach. And then others will have to have project-specific CEQA review. For example, any of the studies that we brought up, anything near a creek, anything in Wave Crest, any of the boardwalks that go from a neighborhood to the coastal trail through State Parks land. The list goes on. The East Side Parallel Trail has been getting its own CEQA coverage as, for example, the first segment was reviewed. So that's what you will see going forward. Those projects of that nature also have to get coastal development permits, and in the case where they are major public works projects, whether they're in the appeals jurisdiction or not, they are appealable actions to the Coastal Commission. So there's a lot of oversight associated with this work going forward. So Planning Commission, again, going back to what they did, they are recommending that you adopt the mitigated negative declaration with the mitigation measures, the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, with an errata sheet that we had prepared for them, and that was provided to you. And then to adopt the bicycle and pedestrian master plan and its guidelines with the changes that are shown in strike-through underline in attachment 7. There weren't very many, so we didn't incorporate them into the plan. It was just one side of a piece of paper, so you have that. And then to make your consideration regarding those studies, which were those three, the Vista Trail, the Frenchman's Creek Trail, and the Beechwood Path, to incorporate them for having bicycle mode also studied. And then staff has brought you, based on that letter you received from the neighbors, and another option to add to the studies to change the way that Pillars Creek Trail east of Carter Park is treated, instead of as a project but as a study. And if you're interested in that, I'm going to go ahead and give you this. Hopefully that gave you a moment to look at that. Now, if you, just a note, there's a note at the end. If we were to change the document to incorporate that direction, in addition to the changes that I've shown in strike-through underline, we will comb through the document and make sure there isn't anything else that needs to be tweaked, but it would all be done consistently with your direction. The item before you is kind of a series of adoptions, if you are going to move forward, including giving us direction about this optional change. And of course, this is a public hearing, and it's a noticed public hearing, as has been the case with the Planning Commission as well. So we want to make sure that you have time to take public comment and pose your questions to staff if any have come up. And that's all we have. Thank you.
I open the public hearing. I have two cards from Marcy Barton and Mike Ferreira. No, on the base.
Ta-da. How's that?
Yeah.
Primo. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm so glad that you've provided time for citizen input on this important issue. I am Marcy Barton. I'm here to represent my community, Cypress Cove. I sit on the Homeowners Association Board as secretary. I'm also the chair of the Landscape Committee, so now you know why I'm here. In that capacity, I've had many opportunities to walk along the beautiful and serene riparian area that abuts our property to the south and I guess to the east a little bit. So I'm familiar with the Coastside Land Trust green space into which a proposed bike path pedestrian walkway is projected to be constructed. You have a letter in your packet. I believe it was sent this morning to several people on email, but I also believe you have it in your packet. It was written by my neighbor and colleague, Carol Black, who has been here several times before you. It's signed by several Cypress Cove residents, including the president and the treasurer of our Homeowners Association Board. And the title of the letter is Adjacent Property Owner Concern. Given the lateness of the hour and I need to be brief, I will not read it. But as you can see, that we have two major concerns about this project. One is the encroachment into that vibrant riparian sheltered green space. And second, the safety of persons living near or visiting on a bike or walking through the area after the project might be built. This riparian area on the south side is very densely wooded. It's very steep and very dark at night. And even though we have bollard lights in our community, it doesn't illuminate the area at all. Perhaps I'm not clear exactly where this pathway will be constructed, but if the idea is to skirt the top of the ravine near Aaron Lane, please understand that there is an average of 42 inches between our walkways at Cypress Cove and the drop-off to the ravine. In some places, and I was out there today taking videos, there's as little as 20 inches from, again, the walkway to the drop-off. So I want to be sure that I extend our gratefulness for Councilman, it's Reddick, not Reddick, it's Rudak.
No, it's Ruddick.
Ruddick, did I get it right first time? Good, thank you for coming out and visiting. And I'm not sure after reading and looking at slide 22 if I even need to again say this, but we are requesting that the City Council delay adoption of the full master plan and move this project, thank you, move this project back into study phase and until perhaps every one of you can come out and take a look. So please consider this my formal personal invitation to visit my neighborhood and to survey this area firsthand, because I think additional study of this proposal in situ, come on out, before final determination to act is made. It might make the difference between what could be safety and security for visitors and residents and some sort of calamity that might happen. So I'm going to leave you have my email, and I can leave my phone number so we can coordinate a visit. Again, I'd love to have you come out. I'll make the coffee. That's it. I will thank you for your time, and I'm very grateful for your consideration this evening, and I hope that we will see you soon in Cypress Cove.
Thank you, Marcy. Mike?
Good evening, Mayor Rohrbach and council members, and thank you very, very much for what you did for so many of our neighbors earlier this evening. Much appreciated. Regarding this, I don't want to be a broken record, but regarding the Pilarcitos Trail, I do want to thank you for taking it off the priority list and I guess turning it into a study because it's now a dotted line. may have missed it, but I didn't see any kind of footnote that explained that status, and I think it would be a better plan if there was one. In the past, to the Planning Commission, I've complained about the Frenchman's Creek Trail because, to my mind's eye, there's very few places that can go because you have houses and barns and reservoirs, et cetera, north of Frenchman's Creek Road. So is it going down in the creek below the edge of the bank? Or is it going south of the houses near Frenchman's Creek Road, in which case you're going through farmland? So I did mention that, but I didn't get any takers from the Planning Commission. They had other things to think about, I guess. And there's no city ownership there. There's no property right unless you're going to try to do it in the right-of-way of Frenchman's Creek Road, in which case it would stop at the private property where the road becomes a private road, which is Casey Kelly's portion of the road. The study trail, the Alta, the Vista, whatever it is, trail, none of that is public property. And some of it goes, as I look at the map, up into the county. And, you know, if it was perhaps shown in an extremely speculative mode, I guess it would kind of be okay, because the worry is, you know, knowing that everything here is going to be subject to grants. We all know that once you get a grant, it's Katie bar the door. So I would hope that all of these trails would be subject to not being sent out for grants until they were finalized a bit more. And I'm going to go to one more thing. A lot of the stuff here is going into the draft LCP update. And so I think we ought to have some standard of finality before we put stuff into the LCP update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. You win.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Jill, if you could help me. I just want to make sure when I'm voting on something, I'm pretty clear. So I might have some real simple questions here. But, when we're talking about trails versus paths, is there a delineation as to one being paved, one being dirt, both? Just wanted to be clear that I understood that.
I think we were using the term path in some places where we thought we were going to have a boardwalk, and it wasn't going to be so extended for shorter areas. So I think some of it was stylistic. I'm not sure that there's that much of a difference. There is a difference in terms of user groups. So there was some differentiation between those that would be for bicycles and pedestrians and those that would be pedestrian only. We also have, for example, the Vista Trail, if it were implemented, there's a lot of different opinions about what it would be, but I think it would be a hard pack earthen trail like you'd go hiking, as opposed to something that we'd see at the coastal trail. But that's not yet determined, and there's plenty of study to be done on that.
So follow-up question then. So the second when we move from, let's say, pedestrian only to bike/pedestrian, so now bike, whenever bike is being added in, does that automatically mean we're speaking of a paved trail, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, and a good example is the Coastside Land Trust segment of the coastal trail where they have a compacted decomposed granite surface south of Seymour.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, that's one example.
That's the bump where it starts getting a bit bumpy.
Yeah,
Or
there's,
past-
there's a lot of opinions about trail surfaces,
Yeah,
which we've
okay.
been hearing about, yeah.
So, great, that helps. Also, I'm just curious, in terms of process and, you know, identifying stakeholders and getting input, I'm just wondering, do we affirmatively, let's say, pursue expert opinions on all these from, let's say, organizations like Sierra Club and Green Foothills, and actually go out and ask them for their input versus just waiting to see if they give input? Do you know what I mean? How does that process work?
We did a number of stakeholder meetings early on in this process with both the Parks Plan and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, and I know that we met with environmental stakeholder groups to discuss these areas, and we understand their input has been very consistent all the way through, which is why your staff report was written this way. I didn't focus on what everybody liked. We focused on what people are still concerned about. And so yes, we did reach out to these folks. We've also talked to people from different organizations and open space groups who have a lot of experience with managing trails in, you know, all over the Bay Area. So we know that it can be done well in different kinds of natural preserves and other locations. And that for them also it wasn't easy. Right now there's a plan for the Bay to Sea Trail, and it's got some really interesting places where it's proposed to traverse and actually link together pieces of county and Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District facilities. And so there's a lot of folks with a lot of expertise locally on this, as well. Of course, you have a city manager who's experienced with this as well.
Okay, thanks. Debbie?
I just want to talk about path versus trail. So part of it is context, and part of it is like length as opposed to, you know, a long distance trail as opposed to like a small connection. For instance, Wave Avenue down to the Coastal Trail and Casa del Mar. But the other part is regulatory. So there's, you know, regulations or, you know, guidance on trails and shared boulevards and all that sort of thing. So there's already existing guidance because these are common things. A path is something a little more informal, and it's very contextual. So I wanted to address the comments raised by Mike Ferreira about things shouldn't be on a map until they're in a state of sort of finality. That's just not how it works in the trail world. Based on my experience, and I know our city manager has worked for East Bay Parks, and they have a map showing not just existing trails, but trails that they'd like to have in the future. And they're totally conceptual, but it's out there, and it's a way to signal to property owners, you know, we'd like to build a trail here. You know, if you're interested, maybe we can, you know, purchase an easement or what have you. So in the professional trails world, among like park districts, trail districts, that sort of thing, you don't have to wait until there's finality. In fact, you can have open space elements in your general plan that identify areas you want to buy for open space, right? Preferred areas, long before you even make an offer to anybody. But so, and I think, given the fact that we have basically a 2-lane road, north-south, and a 2-lane road east-west, and the fact that we've precluded having a parallel road in the foothills to offset some of that traffic, I think we need trails for people to get around. We need to connect neighborhoods. We need to connect people to downtown. We need trails that potentially people can use to evacuate in the case of an emergency. So I have no problem with trails. The Coastal Act says, part of their mission is maximizing public access to the extent possible, given, environmental constraints. So the environment and natural resources are important. But access is a very important pillar of the Coastal Act. So I'm in favor of trails, and I'm in favor of including trails that are only conceptual. Maybe we don't own the land or whatever, but it's an area that's desirable to host a trail in the future. Why not? So I'm perfectly willing to accept the Planning Commission's Attachment 7, and Attachment 8 is amended to include new treatment of Pilarcitos Creek Trail. But I think we want to identify a network that works for us in the long term. This is a long-term document. It's not just for the next couple of years where we might get grant funding and we can buy a trail and build it now. It's our plan. It's our long-term plan. So, Mike, sorry, but I think I have to disagree with you there. I'm totally in favor of the Vista Trail. And I think I'm open to studying, bike as well as pedestrian. I don't think bike will work in some of those more sensitive areas like Beechwood, but I think we have to look at it. We're going to have to study everything anyway. We're going to be doing detailed CEQA, as projects come up. So why not just say, we'll look at, bike and pedestrian. I don't have a problem with that. So those are my only, comments, specific comments. I do want to say that I think the plan is phenomenal. I can't think of anything we've had like this, ever. I think it's going to impress grant funders, the level of detail, the level of context, the long-term vision, the sensitivity to stakeholders. I think it's really, really well done, and really thrilled to be able to support it.
Anybody else? No.
Yeah.
No fighting.
So, obviously myself being a tremendous biker in this town, as well as city manager who bikes around quite a bit, I find it appalling that we have no safe way to get into downtown on bike. Doesn't make any sense. We don't have a way for kids to get to schools on their bikes. Doesn't make any sense. It helps with, this is going to help with traffic. This is going to help with ways for people to move around, we can't even leave our house on the weekends to get groceries. It's like we bike instead of driving. So when we're in Half Moon Bay, we're always on bike, my entire family. And I'm very excited to get this going. I like the projects that were outlined. I am a big proponent of figuring out a way, which doesn't have to necessarily be the creek up into downtown, but we need a way to get from the trail into downtown Half Moon Bay safely. And so whatever we have to do to study that aspect of it, again, I'm open to suggestions. That the Creekside Trail makes like a ridiculous amount of sense for a variation of different reasons, and then there's other reasons why it doesn't. So I get both sides of that argument, but I definitely want to study that and figure out what the prospects are on that. In terms of the attachments in 7, I'm all good. The attachments in 8, I'm all good. There's nothing in there that's really anything that I oppose. There are some things in there, and I'm sure you took this into account, that I would have prioritized differently in terms of what I would like to move forward, right? Yeah. But I'm going to trust your judgment on that, and I won't even mess with it.
And the BPAC priority.
And the BPAC as well, right? So I'm sure all that went into account, and so there's a bunch of stuff I'd like to be like, oh, I'd rather move this in and actually like move this down, but I'm not even going to do it. And I'll just let you guys move forward as proposed, because I know that must have taken, I know how much time's been put into it. So I appreciate it, and thank you.
Go for it.
Yeah, I would agree with what Director Ruddock has said, and the other board members who've spoken. I don't have any objection to any of it. The only point I would like to make is that connecting bicycle paths that get you toward the city, but don't get you through the city, is something I don't want to be putting off forever. We need to be looking at Main Street from the bridge to Buena Vista. We need to be looking at how people get through town. We need to be looking at Church Street, and we need to be looking at them connected to the north and to the south, as well as to the east and the west. So we have Main Street as a study because it's a huge, huge deal. But we already have had one study and some suggestions, and so we know a lot about what some of the possibilities could be. I just don't want to see that put off forever. I want to see that as coming up as a priority fairly soon. It's something that we study.
Anybody else? I think some of the controversial parts of this have to do with the studies that were recommended. And in that context, I would like to quote, if you can forgive a few quotes here, from the Planning Commission meeting, because I think this is important. Assuming these recommendations are in fact followed. One of them, make sure that the Planning Commission will have another review of individual projects, including environmental studies that are on the table. 2, multi-year habitat studies should be conducted to see if there is impact from increased trail use over time. 3, sensitive to trails in Wavecrest. When does Wavecrest stop being open space if too many trails are there? Okay. And lastly, all these trails, the Beechwood Trail, the Vista Trail, Frenchman's Creek Trail should be subject to robust scientific understanding of the hazards and potential environmental impacts that would be associated with trails in any of these or other potentially sensitive areas where improvements or studies are identified in the Bike and Ped Master Plan. Now, maybe I'm very naive that this stuff won't be followed, but I'm hopeful it will be. And assuming that the Planning Commission stays on course, and assuming that the city staff understands that this is what the Planning Commission and the City Council agreed to, I don't see any problem with studying the Pilarcitos Creek Trail. I don't see any problem with studying the Frenchman's Creek Trail, as long as these studies are done with these provisos. So that's where I'm coming from. And then when people say there ought to be a way to get from the Coastside Trail to Main Street, I think we should really prioritize the Kelly Street bike path. And one way that might make more sense, when I was walking here to this meeting, people almost got killed. I would propose, and this isn't in the plan, but it's something for consideration, to forbid parking on Kelly from Highway 1 to the beach. And that would then allow more room for a sensible bike path, and also to have crosswalks. One of the possibilities for good crosswalks that would do double duty would be these raised crosswalks that also work for traffic calming. So that would do double duty as safety as well as slowing down the traffic. So I would advocate for Kelly Street having high priority in terms of access to the beach. And I'm not worried about some of these other projects as long as they're studied with these provisos in mind. So, and I'm okay with what's in attachment 8 also.
I'd like to just talk about Wavecrest briefly. So I agree, we don't want a lot of formal trails through Wavecrest. I think we want to manage the access there. But part of the beauty of having some formal trails is you have those formal trails, you approve them, you sign them, you provide directional signage, and then you eliminate the informal trails. So what you want to do is you want to eliminate the informal ones that are clearly trampling, like spring seeps, these sort of ephemeral wetlands and things. There's a bunch of those out there. And people are just walking whichever way and trampling them. I'm totally against that.
People walk
So,
on
Yeah.
all across it,
Really?
and there's dog poo every place.
Oh, interesting.
So what I'm in favor of is limited formal access and elimination of a lot of those informal access ways that are clearly, trashing the environment. And so that's going to be a combination of education, trail construction, education, signage, that sort of thing. But yeah, so it's access management, like we're going to be doing out at, along Poplar, the coastal trail along Poplar Beach, is managing access there. So, it's a balancing act. So I agree with whoever raised that comment. I think it might have been Steve Ruddick. But
Who's
yeah.
that?
So, point well taken. And I like the idea about Kelly and no parking. I think that's really interesting, actually, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I love the Mayor Rarbach's idea about banning parking on Kelly for a number of reasons. One, we both symbolically and realistically have to show that we're serious about not just having cars being the only priority in a city. And that is a major thoroughfare off Highway 1. Like you said, we want to make it safe to come into town. And sure, there'll be some gripes about it, but also shows we're really serious. And by the way, once we get all these bikes into town, we really need more bike racks in town also for where the heck to put them, so they're not blocking pedestrians and how to work that. So I'd love to see more. Otherwise, I'm always on a no parking sign or whatever, and I'm sure there's some ordinance against that, but yeah, so it'd be great to think about where would we put all the bikes, what about when it's raining, incentivize the behavior that we want, so it's great.
Yeah, I think there's some great bike rack recommendations in the report, which is nice to see, because we need a lot more bike racks in all the different neighborhoods. But the parking on Kelly, it's interesting because Kelly in particular is a street where people bike all the time.
Yeah.
It's already a street, and I was reading through all the things. I think it's currently, we have it listed as or in the report as a Class 2 bike trail currently, and but there's no signage on there to even designate. That's just like quick, easy, low-hanging fruit to be like, okay, we can easily get that part on. But if you were going with your suggestion, you could even make it, what is that? I think, is that Class 1 or Class 3? 4. Where you actually, or is it 4? Where you have the buffered. Yeah. The buffered. And I actually prefer the buffered dramatically, but.
That would be, increase the safety immensely along
Oh,
the
yeah,
way.
yeah. I mean, that's a game changer, so. That would allow that to happen.
Maybe we ease folks into it by first getting rid of the perpendicular parking, taking up all that space.
Yeah.
Ease folks kind of into it, parallel first, less spots, have some room for bikes, yeah.
I just had a quick question. So I noticed that the consultant made some assumptions that we would need, 5 bike racks or 2 storage units, different places. Like, what's the assumption behind assigning 5 as opposed to 10 or 2?
I guess.
You happen to have an answer to that one? Just
I don't have an answer to that one, but I think some of those things can, and this relates also to the priorities. Those priorities were the BPAC's priorities, and they understand this from staff, and I know you do, and same with how many bike racks do you need. It's going to come through your capital improvement program. It's going to come through, community-oriented planning. when something's being done on somebody's street or in a particular park, like we're looking at Ocean View Park, the bathroom project that's going to go there, they'll get a bike rack. I mean, you know, things are going to happen with Frenchman's Creek Park, and these will be sized. Staff will have a sense of what's needed. So, yes, I think that was kind of an order of magnitude, and I would consider that to be a minimum for most parks. But yes, they are intended to be dispersed where they're needed throughout town.
So will our LCP update, or maybe it's actually zoning implementation, sort of, you know, as development comes forward and capital projects come forward, there's a trigger to consider like bike access and like EV parking, like?
You know, there is, and you already have some of that in the zoning code with respect to bikes. We're actually wanting to add EV to the code when we do those zoning amendments that we talked to you about in July. But that is a good thing to flow out of the land use plan update, and it would be, well, I think it's already covered at the policy level in your draft document, but we do need to code it. So, yes.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, and I was actually going similar, just in terms of the funding aspect of it. So I liked when we did, and you can help explain this to me, when we did the Parks and Rec Master Plan, it was kind of easy to kind of go in and be like, all right, here's the biggest bang for the buck. Let's start working towards this particular one. For this, I'm looking at it and I'm kind of like, okay, there's maybe let's just call it 10 different bangs for the buck that are kind of listed. I don't know how to prioritize, like, okay, we're going towards this one, or is it all 10, or I don't know how to, and then obviously there's funding mechanisms that also need to probably be put in place in terms of grants and all the various pieces, but how do we kind of like, what's your plan to fundingly move it forward? Fundingly? Yeah.
It's iterative, as you know, so obviously we look at what grants are available and you try to make your projects to the grants. That said, the East Side Parallel Trail, it checks every box. Oh, yeah. It serves the diversity of the community. You heard from a lot of community members tonight. The intention is that that trail would serve Moon Ridge. And it's something that has been wanted for such a long time. It resonated really strongly when we were doing our neighborhood pop-up meetings several years ago, and that energy never went away from it. So there's that's a big project, and it's phased, and the thinking on that is, you know, I already talked about how we're going after grants for the different sections of it as they seem eligible. And you're going to see a segment of it coming nearer than later. Other things I was trying to be clear about that are really small can just be implemented with, you know, sometimes they're just paint, right? Paint and signs, okay? And then there's hard ones where you're gonna need to pick what you want for like a study or something where there's actual infrastructure being put in. For example, your Poplar Gateways plan includes a planned retreat of the coastal trail. That's a big deal. That's a big project. Yeah. I hope that helps. I don't have John here tonight. He was going to sit with me, and that was something I also wanted to mention. This was a multidisciplinary project. Planning got to Community Development Department, got to really enjoy the care and feeding of producing this plan, but a lot of people are involved in your back at City Hall, and staff is very excited about being able to cite it as well as having the BPAC for competing for grants.
I just want to point out, so, you know, we adopted the green infrastructure plan. Tonight, and we're adopting this bike plan. These two plans are going to change how we development and how we're going to present as a city and how the city is going to be more usable to residents. So it's a really big deal. And then the LCP update will be coming along, you know, concentrating development. I mean, there's some big stuff going on in Half Moon Bay. Not a lot of it's making it into the papers, but it's good stuff.
Yeah.
And kudos to staff and the citizens commissions and, the council. And I just want to say, Harvey made some good points about the planning commission and the protections that they supplied in their recommendations on this. I support those. I just want you to know that. But I'm ready to
Make a motion.
move.
Yeah, anything else?
I just want to say thank you to staff. This, I know, has been a labor of love, but it's been a lot of labor, and we love it.
Debbie, you want to?
I would also like to just really compliment the kind of strategic thinking that's gone throughout all this planning, and to the thoughts about future grants, current and future grants, and how we have to please a lot of county, state constituents and stakeholders to get that kind of money. And what's the point of making all these plans if we can't pay for them down the road? So beautiful maps, beautiful plans. Thanks for and thanks for educating me and the rest of the community, whoever's still in the room, but really appreciate that.
You want to make a motion, Debbie?
Yeah, where's the?
It's right in front of you.
Oh, okay. I move that we adopt the resolution next in order, adopting the bicycle and pedestrian master plan and its guidelines, including those presented in attachment 7, incorporate the changes proposed to studies as presented in attachment 8, adopt the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program and errata based upon the findings and evidence contained in Exhibit A of the draft resolution. And do we need to incorporate the Planning Commission's guidance?
I think it would be nice to do that, and I also want to make sure that attachment 8 as amended, as I handed out tonight, is your intent.
That's right.
And we didn't have the minutes approved yet when I did the staff report with that Planning Commission guidance, and I tucked them in at the end, so it didn't make it into the attachment. So we'd be happy to incorporate that guidance into the plan.
So optionally including optionally incorporating the changes, not optionally, incorporating the changes proposed to studies as presented in the amended attachment 8. And based upon the findings and evidence contained in Exhibit A of the draft resolution, and incorporating the guidance for future trail location, Planning Commission guidance relating to future trail implementation. Does that cover it?
I'm glad you did it.
Second. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Joe.
Well done.
Well done. Another thing on your plate.
Oh, it's just starting.
Wow, it's before 10 o'clock, and we're getting to appointments to the Architectural Advisory Committee and amendment to the bylaws.
All right, we'll try to be quick with this one. I think it's fairly straightforward. You have given us quite a bit of direction about forming the Architectural Advisory Committee, and in fact, it was at your meeting, I think in June, that you told us to go out and do this, and the city clerk actually did 2 willing to serve notices. And so the item before you tonight, one is a tweak to the bylaws that we preemptively brought forward. You don't have to do this, but we were noticing with the recruitment that it is challenging sometimes to seat an architectural committee because some of the members are going to have conflicts inherently because their practice is local, and your intent for seating the committee would be that the petitioners have local experience. So we just provided a minor revision to the bylaws that we'd like you to consider. And then after that, to make appointments. And you have 6 applications. Of those, 4 applicants appear to be fully qualified. 2 are also provided here for your consideration. We'd suggest that you go through these one at a time by the category of what seat the applicant would fill, the one architect, the one landscape architect, and then the one at-large member who, that member is required to be a Half Moon Bay resident and have relevant design experience, such as a contractor or someone like a garden landscape designer who might not be an architect but has lots of experience in the field working with the built environment. So you could nominate them in that way, one by one, and then we can talk about alternate members in a moment. Let me get to that. Well, let me go ahead and just suggest. You don't have to appoint any alternates tonight. You could do it later. You could appoint one tonight, and then we could look for another one. You could give us direction about working with the committee for a while. That's one of the things we obviously haven't started. So as soon as we know who the folks are, we're going to schedule our orientation meeting as soon as possible. They need to be sworn in. They need to learn about their role. And they may have some suggestions and support for alternates. So you have a lot of options there, and we're happy to work any way you want with that. So we just have the bylaw resolution and the appointments, and I'm going to click this back to, I'm going to ask the city attorney, if they're going to do alternates, do they need to adopt the bylaw amendment first, probably? Probably, okay.
Yes, that would make sense.
All right.
Can we amend the bylaw to say that we may at some future time want to name alternates?
They were drafted so that it's optional. You don't
So we don't have to, if we don't
No.
know what we're going to do, we don't have to make any decision on that right now.
Exactly. And we can give you feedback if we're finding that we're short, we're not being able to make a quorum, and we need an alternate, we'll let you know right away.
Great.
Okay.
Because I think there are people that I know who might step up to the plate if it was not, the full responsibility, if they were just an alternate.
Let's do this.
Yeah, so do we have a consensus that we're not going to appoint alternates tonight? Is that right?
I'm absolutely good with that.
I'm totally good with that.
All right, okay. So we'll adopt the do we need to even adopt the resolution amending the bylaws if we're not going to appoint any alternates?
Sure.
Probably.
Okay, all right, fine.
Easy.
May I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt a resolution amending the Architectural Advisory Committee bylaws to allow for up to 2 alternate members.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we have the ability to appoint 2 alternate members. But apparently, we're not going to do that tonight. But we are going to nominate 1 applicant for each of the 3 categories. Okay, so I guess we'll start with the architect. Do we have a nomination for the architect?
I believe we only had 1 architect apply, am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And then I would like to nominate Linda Pancini.
Do I have a second?
I don't think you need a second.
You don't, okay. All in favor? Do we need to vote? I don't know what's.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Linda.
I would like to nominate Steve Kikuchi as landscape architect.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Steve.
I would like to nominate Chad Hooker as our at-large member.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Chad. Next, yeah?
Yeah, good, good.
Okay. All right, good. The final item is the Measure D allocation transfer. Yeah.
All right, you're stuck with me one more time here. This item is also a continuation of a discussion that you had. In this case, it was just at your last meeting. We gave you an update on the status of Measure D allocations for 2019, and in fact, noted that we had run out of allocations for outside downtown. We discussed whether or not Council would like to consider transferring allocations that are in downtown. Only the base allocations are eligible. It can be done in September pursuant to your code. The code did not really have a process for doing so, and Council's direction was that you would like a process that is a resolution of Council. And so we've brought that to you tonight, as well as a separate resolution where staff is recommending a transfer of 12 allocations, and we will quickly talk about why. Remembering the status, there were 71 for this year. Issued so far are 24. We have 4 applications right now for outside downtown. It includes 1 house with an accessory dwelling unit and 2 additional accessory dwelling units. We have a project that's pending to, we've seen the plans that the applicant wants to apply for certificates for a single-family home with an ADU, and there's a couple more ADUs. So there's, we believe at least 6 would be needed to support those projects, which would include 4 accessory dwelling units and probably several more. We don't have any applications right now for the downtown area. I know of a couple that are in very preliminary phases, and if they sought Measure D certificates this year, there are still plenty of allocations in the downtown to cover them. We also are processing some downtown applications through the Planning Commission, but they already have their Measure D allocations from previous years. So this is the quick sum of what we're seeing at the counter. And so what we brought you tonight is a resolution for your consideration to help us really clarify a procedure for transferring allocations. So it would be by resolution. Staff is recommending that the timing would be September or October. The code specifically says that they're not eligible until September. We don't think it's really worthwhile after October because we're so close to January when new allocations would be available. But it is meaningful in the September to October range because we process accessory dwelling unit applications so quickly that waiting to January would quadruple our processing time for those. So we just note that this, even though it just seems like a few months, it actually really matters for those. Also prepare draft findings for your consideration. The intent with them was to protect downtown and to emphasize affordability. So you'll note that we would really encourage these to be specifically for accessory dwelling units, possibly single-family homes that had such units, or multifamily developments such as the duplexes and the triplexes that Planning Commission has been looking at, and if we were so lucky, a multifamily development. But we would also expect that to probably be downtown and not be in this boat because of where the zoning is located. So your staff report reviewed findings. We also talked about how we are concerned about readiness of applications and when Measure D allocations are put forth and then the application lags for transfers. Staff is really concerned about that, and it sounded like council was as well, so we added a finding about that. So one of your items will be to consider the transfer procedure. The other is to consider the specific proposal for 2019. We would suggest for this first time, we would really like to have 12 available to cover what we think are going to be at least 6 to 8, and then to have a cushion if there were any more accessory dwelling units, but it would not be for single-family homes unless there was an ADU involved. We think we'd issue 6 of those right away. We didn't want to go over half of what's available. We heard you make a really strong statement about the intent of protecting allocations for downtown and about really facilitating development downtown, and that's been your intention for such a long time that we just felt like going over half for this first time would feel inappropriate. And so that's why you're seeing what you are tonight. We are happy to get your direction. I'm sure that there's some things that you might want to give us some more feedback about. Obviously, this is the first time we've done this. Looks like I have 2 of the same slides. So you have 2 separate resolutions. One is your attachment A for the procedure, and the second one is specifically for 2019. I'm going to keep it on the procedure and happily to answer questions about that.
I have one public comment. Mike, where are you?
He left.
He left? I have no public comments. I'll bring it back to council.
You're in the doghouse.
I actually know what Mike wanted to talk about.
Yeah, what do you want?
And that was the 12, why the 12 as opposed to, yeah. But I believe Jill has answered that, and that is to cover probably some additional ADUs, which is hard to argue with, so.
I have
you, Mike.
no objection to transferring the Measure D to outside of downtown. I want it very limited, and I would like to see it limited to only ADUs, not to include single-family residences that are also adding an ADU. I don't see a good reason for that.
Also amend the recommendation, just make it.
Yes.
You mean for this year?
Forever. For this year, I don't know.
Well, you
This
got to be clear
resolution
about what you're
has to
talking
do
about.
with this year, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but remember, so there's 2 things. There's the procedure, and then there's this year.
Yeah.
So the procedure that Jill is presenting for our authorization says, the criteria that we would use is we don't, it's always may, by the way, we don't have to transfer it all, right? But the criteria, based on what she heard from us talking last time, was, affordability, some form of affordability, ADUs or a single-family home with an affordable component like an ADU, or it's a multifamily dwelling unit, but it's not in the downtown area. Maybe it's a duplex, maybe it's a triplex or something like that. So I think the procedure for reviewing and approving makes sense because it's always may anyway. Plus, there's a provision in there that says we can use any other criteria that we feel makes sense, right?
Right.
So I think the process for reviewing and approving is flexible enough to cover our affordability goals, and for anything else we might make a decision like we certainly don't want to prioritize, say, second units, second family, vacation homes, for instance. Definitely not. Right?
Yeah.
we'd rather bank that and use it for something else, so.
But how do you know it's going to be a vacation home?
Well, I don't think we ask
And
that
that's
question, you know, when
No, we
people come in.
don't, and that's why we have to
Yeah.
make it clear in our resolution what it is we mean. When we say some level of affordability, I'm not talking about a duplex where each half of the duplex sells for $2 million. That's not affordability to me. Even if it's a duplex, you could make it a triplex and still sell each, a third for,
Would you rather make it more specific, like below market rate, which has a more, which is more pinned to, local incomes and that sort of thing?
Yes, that all parts of the project must be below market rate.
Otherwise, it's just renting an ADU is just renting an apartment
Right.
at a
Right.
market price.
Right, and then what you do is you build a single-family home outside the downtown area. You charge, you build it for $3 million, somebody buys it, and they rent out their ADU for
$3,000 a month.
$3,000 a month. I mean, that's not getting us where we want to go.
I just want clarification. Are we talking about the general criteria or what we're talking about for these 12
Right now, we're just
transfers?
talking about the process for reviewing and approving.
Okay.
Did that clear anything up?
And the process is, we make findings, we establish criteria and then make findings based on those criteria. And the criteria right now are either affordable units or some other criteria that may develop in the future that we're not aware of yet, that we hadn't thought of yet. Maybe there's some goal we develop that we want to, apply. Maybe it's, I don't know. But it's open, it's flexible. There's a flexible provision that'll.
Well, Councilmember Reddick is exactly right about what the intention was for having a procedure that's flexible and emphasizes the priorities that we understand council has at this time. I need to add something to the thick of it because it's really important with respect to the city's obligation for processing housing development proposals. And it's our reporting to the Department of Housing and Community Development. You may recall before April, this report is due every year, and I know this is a lot of minutia, but you got this thick multi-page spreadsheet that showed sites by parcel number and every single step of the entitlement process with a date and how many units were applied for and how many were approved. And it was for the planning entitlement, the building permit, the certificate of occupancy. And so one of our concerns on staff is if something with an ADU lags for 6 months because we don't have a certificate, it's really going to pop off that page. And I know it isn't exactly in the sweet spot of what you want, but it is production in an area that the state wants. It's why we had to do the ordinance that we did. And I'd also be concerned about it with duplexes and triplexes. I'm not worried about it with single family. Market rate single family it's important, and we will see some lags in those tables, but the timeline on entitlement review for a house is quite a bit longer than for an accessory dwelling unit. You have a lot of discretion in this. We could, I'd like to listen to you talk a little bit more. I've got a couple more thoughts, and they're not enough. Okay.
See, somebody likes to hear me talk. That's good.
Hey, there's somebody. I don't think Mike Ferreira did it.
So I think Deborah had probably a good recommendation then, is maybe we just assign them all to ADUs, the 12, But so I was going to report on this in the next item, but so at CCAG, we're beginning the process of dealing with the next regional housing needs assessment. We call it ARENA. And so the decision at CCAG is, well, do we do a sub-region where everybody pools their resources and attacks this together and we divvy up the numbers and all that? Or does each city, go it alone? I'll have more to report on that. This is interesting. But with the new laws, we're at real risk not approving, especially ADUs, but housing. There's now going to be teeth in these numbers, and there's going to be penalties, like, no grant money or no transportation money or whatever it is, but there's going to be penalties as well. And there's a shrinking base of the types of land you can cite as available for development. And you can't cite the ones that you cited the year before. So the noose is tightening for sure, and Jill's tuned into that. So I think it's important to move ahead, but maybe we could, say ADUs only this time in terms of the actual, not the review piece, but the piece for this coming, for the rest of this year. I would support that. But yeah, I mean, the noose is tightening. I think that's the best way to describe it. And Jill's right about that.
And we can look at this again next year.
Yeah. But I do like the process she's established because I think affordability is important, and it's general and it's flexible. So I would adopt that tonight. And then I would maybe move forward on the ADU thing for the specific. Does that suit you, Deborah? Does that answer your?
Yeah.
Because what we're saying is, it's almost like we have the state, county, there's two separate compliance issues. One is just having more housing. And all you got to do is look down El Camino and Redwood City. It's all density housing, but all of it is market rate. But they get certain allowances because they put near the train. I mean, that's what it is. So, so we're required to create more housing. And then we also have our own initiatives to create lower than market, really affordable housing at the same time. So what I'm hearing you're saying is we at least minimally have to satisfy the requirements for more housing with ADUs, and then later on how we encourage those ADUs to be
I think
affordable.
it'll bode us well to approve the ADUs. I mean, that's going to give us some coverage because a lot of the debate this year in Sacramento, other than SB 50, was about, the numerous bills about ADUs, making it even more stringent and required. And, most of them have failed deadlines, but will become 2-year bills.
And we've had some momentum for people to apply to construct ADUs, but we didn't require anything around affordability in terms of how much they were going to. So there might be an inconsistency there we just have to think about.
I think Bob wanted to say.
I just wanted to clarify what I heard in terms of the proposal and the ramification that I believe it might have. So as I understand it, there is an application in front of us that's for a house and an ADU. And so if I heard it correctly, the tweak to the resolution, not only going forward, but to have it apply to the ones that are in front of us now would be that we would only do transfers for ADUs. Well, that particular person, and I don't know if they're just a property owner building a house for their family or if it's a developer, but they're not going to build an ADU without building the house. So they're just going to get angry and then they're going to resubmit in January. So I just want to make sure that the outcome is clarified of what will probably happen in that particular case. I mean, the ADU is with the house application, I assume, and someone's not going to piecemeal the project. They're not going to build the ADU and come back and build the house later. And if it's for themselves, I mean, but the low market doesn't apply. If maybe it's a developer, I don't know. But I just think you just have to consider the ramification of what that action would have on this one that's in front of us right now.
Well, then that raises another question. Maybe it's already been answered, and I'm having a hard time keeping things straight. So if it is for a house and an ADU, do they actually have a permit application? Because, building the house and ADU, that's going to take a long time. That's not going to materialize anytime quickly, right? And if they don't even have a permit application in yet, why would we be?
This one actually does, and I have they submitted it with knowledge that we wouldn't be able to do too much with it because they didn't have a Measure D certificate. They submitted an application with full sets of plans on August 15th. And then we have a similar one pending where we have a known contractor who's got plans for a house and an ADU. I know it's hard. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm not in favor of us supporting single-family residences outside the downtown area.
Well, they're going to get some because they're going to get some allocations every year, right? I mean.
They just have to wait till next year.
Yeah. Next year is 2 months away.
2 months, that's why, for me, it's like, just approve it and be done. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's 4
We're
months.
arguing about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin.
Pretty much.
I'm not in favor of non-affordable housing, which I'll get to in a minute, but let's not really confuse the details of this resolution with how many Measure D allocations we're going to have next year. Okay, it's just a different ball of wax.
Well, maybe I can help move this along.
Yeah.
I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution establishing the procedure for reviewing and approving and get that out of the way. Can we do that like now and then deal with this year's?
I'll second.
Okay. Do you want to call for a vote?
Okay, all in favor of this motion? Aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
So now we're dealing with the,
I don't think it's that tricky, I think we just do it, personally.
Before we talk about this resolution, I'd like to make a very few brief comments.
Yes, please do.
Okay. First of all, I'm grateful to Debbie for bringing this up last meeting, that we thought that it's important that the council weigh in on this. I really think that that was a good thing. And second, I'm grateful to Jill for writing this resolution to give the council the authority to do what we're going to do.
Jill and Catherine, I think, maybe.
Jill and Catherine? Okay, we give Catherine credit too.
Just Jill, okay.
All right, just Jill. And lastly, I don't like to use this word affordable, which is in the resolution. To me, affordable has a very definite meaning. It means, 60% of the median income, or 30% of your total salary. And just using the word affordable for an ADU could, in principle, cost $1 million to build or rent. So I don't think that word affordable should be tossed around so cavalierly. I think we should use another word like.
Below market rate.
No, but it's not even a below market rate. We're just talking, an ADU doesn't have to be guaranteed to be below market rate. Okay.
Where are you finding this word that you're talking about?
Affordable?
We just approved the process for reviewing the criteria.
No, I understand. In the resolution, it uses the word affordable. And like I said, to me, affordable has a very distinct meaning. And I don't.
Yeah, affordable by who? Yeah, it might be affordable by a millionaire.
It's in paragraph B in the resolution you just approved, for example.
Yes.
Oh, so you're back to that,
Yeah. I mean, it is in a certain sense semantic. I just don't want us to start thinking that we're automatically building affordable. To me, affordable is what I just said. It's what Bill Lee was telling us. And that's all.
Well, the beauty is the process that we approved provides enough flexibility for us to determine what we think is affordable.
Correct.
Yeah, but I understand, but I'd prefer to use another word like, I don't know, reasonably priced or.
Cheap?
Well.
If staff could chime in just for a second. We'll I'll talk to Bill and see if he's come up with another term, but the term of art of what we've been using are language like the missing middle, the more affordable by design, et cetera, as it's more generic and it tends to refer to smaller units or multifamily units. We know they're not deed restricted affordable. When we are talking specifically about defined affordability levels with housing, we add all those adjectives to it, and the difference is very detailed. It's unfortunate that that's the kind of the colloquial term that we're using here, and if we come up with something better, we can work it into our work, but I'm seeing it everywhere in the literature right now.
She's good. She's good.
Okay. I just wanted to get my 2 cents in.
Good work, Harvey.
Thank you very much.
I appreciated it. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. So are we going to now vote on the
The transfer.
transfer?
Are we approving a transfer for things we want to approve a transfer for? And I think Deborah doesn't think so.
Right.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we're going to transfer, then we transfer for ADUs, which at least supply housing for some lower income folks,
In theory, yeah.
in theory.
So what about,
And those
would you
who-
grandfather in a
yeah.
single-family home with an ADU?
No.
And the single-family home with the ADU, which is on, in the permit process, they'll apply for their permit as in 3 months, as a regular application, and they'll get it. So if it makes you feel better to say that we're denying them something which they're going to get in 3 months, God bless you, but I don't think it makes a big deal.
I don't know how much it makes it
It
different.
makes a big deal to me,
Oh, okay.
because it's the principle of it.
What about you, Robert?
Some other wording around here. 11 ADUs only, and +1 if you wanted to please this individual, or they wait. I don't have a problem with having someone wait 2 months and reapply.
So 12 ADUs?
And yeah, I'm okay to prove that. I also just want to say, I still don't see how the word, using the word affordable triggers anything. Words like low income trigger things, but Jill, does the word just affordable trigger any legal requirements? I
People are
didn't-
getting PTSD from all those words at this point.
The way we used it, I don't think that it did, but if you wanted those requirements, you could require that in the future. We don't have any applications
Right.
like that before you, so it's really not relevant at this point in time. If something came in with a deed restriction, affordable unit that was outside the downtown, we'd be the first to run.
My perspective is, I hope this works for both sides, but we need more housing, period, in Half Moon Bay to support pretty much all kinds.
I disagree, but.
You disagree? Both of you guys disagree
Yes.
with that?
Absolutely.
I do.
All right, well, that's my perspective, because we have so many different income
We need
levels.
moderate,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
need moderate, we need low, extremely low.
Yes.
We do not need any above moderate.
Oh, well, and that, I can see that perspective, but there's also tax implications that go along with that as well, which help the city fund other mechanisms of what we do.
Our property taxes don't fund a whole lot of anything.
Are you referring to property tax?
Yeah.
You mean the 7% that we get back from the county?
Yeah.
It's like
That's so based on a $1 million house, the $700 that we get back? No, seriously.
Yeah, it's fair.
I've done
it's
that
fair.
arithmetic in my head 100 times because I've heard that
I'm going to
argument.
use my prerogative as mayor to stop this side conversation.
Yeah.
We're considering this resolution. We're not considering whether we need more housing or not. That's for another time.
So act by fiat, then.
Can I
Oh,
make
yeah.
a motion?
Go for it.
I move that we adopt a resolution approving a transfer of 2019 of up to 12 Measure D allocations from the 23 downtown base allocation to be used for project proposals for accessory dwelling units, period.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Me?
I oppose it too.
So it passes 3-2.
Yep.
Okay.
So they're just coming back in January.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not going to believe this, but this is one more item for us to chat about. This is, you heard from Matthew at your last meeting regarding the Parks and Recreation Commission. This is a Planning Commission update. Got it divided into 4 quick topics. We assume that you're interested in what they're doing with respect to housing. In July, they had a robust study session on the zoning amendments that you had heard about. They've also been approving small multifamily projects. They had a duplex in June, a single family with an accessory dwelling unit that I wasn't able to take at the director level. That was in July, and they just approved a triplex, really, really handsome project last week on Pilarcitos Avenue that they were very excited about. So they've had some nice projects come through over the last couple of months. They have 2 small downtown mixed-use projects coming their way. We're trying to have them ready, one for a study session, the other for a hearing in October. They've had a little bit of commercial work. A full facade update for McDonald's was in June, and of course the Pillar Point RV Park was in July. City projects take a lot of the Planning Commission's time. They saw Carter Park in a study session mode in July. Of course, they just did a huge heavy lift on the bicycle pedestrian master plan in August. And at their next meeting on Tuesday, they are going to see a proposal for stair improvement at Poplar with a drainage improvement. This is follow-up from emergency coastal development permit work. And then the final topic, the land use plan. They have had study sessions all summer. They had one in June. They had a special meeting, a July 30th meeting. They're going to have a study session September 24th. We had a closure on September 13th of the public comment period on the public review draft that's out right now. They're going to hear a summary of that on September 24th. And then they're looking forward to seeing you on October 29th in a joint study session format where we're going to bring you as much as we can of a revised document. They're meeting 2 times a month, plus when we have I tease them about that 5th Tuesday. They have to be warned because we always find something to put on. And that's your update. Thanks.
So the governor signed AB 825, which creates the new San Mateo County Flooding and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District, so that the board that's now meeting as the board in waiting, as of January 1, will be, as Dave Pine says, the board in power. So that's moving along, and we're in the process of recruiting a general manager or executive officer, whatever the CEO, whatever the title ends up being. So back to the RENA at CCAG. So a straw poll was taken from cities who would be willing to form a sub-region. And it was actually, it's close. I think about 50% want to form the sub-region, maybe a little over 50, and the rest want to go it alone. And the problem is, to form a sub-region, you have to do it of contiguous areas. So there's a problem there. So it was just a straw poll, so more information is going to go out to the cities, and I think potentially
Counties and cities then?
the county and the cities. The county was missing from the meeting, so they didn't weigh in on it. So you may be getting a call from CCAG staff, just, finding out more about where the city's at. And I said we were in favor of the sub-region light. That was the, so we basically accept ABAG's methodology and then work on the numbers together, as opposed to doing our own methodology. You have to have a methodology for, distributing your regional housing needs that's levied by the Department of Housing and Community Development. It's very complicated. So anyway, we haven't really resolved the sub-region thing yet, but we have to make a decision, I think, by January. So there's going to be more discussions for that.
And the cities have to be geographically contiguous?
Yes.
So it doesn't apply to us?
Well, we would be, if Pacifica agrees, and probably if San Mateo agrees, we're in good shape.
Okay.
San,
Three that could possibly apply are County, Pacifica, and San Mateo.
well, so Redwood City and San Mateo, and I forget the other cities, I think maybe Menlo Park wanted to go it alone. And Daly City wasn't there, so we don't know where they stand. So they separate Pacifica from Brisbane, so Brisbane didn't know what to do. So we have to get everybody lined up, and that's going to take more work. Yeah. So yeah, we're kind of out of luck because of, right now, because of San Mateo wanting to opt out. But I think they can be educated. It's the cities who don't want to be told to do any housing, even though they really have to do housing. So. Actually, Hillsborough was in favor of the sub-region.
Oh, really?
Yes. So they might apply as contiguous to us too, I'm guessing, but anyway, the housing thing is fraught with peril. That's all I gotta say.